Chapter 554. This chapter is for the leader, Glorious War Song, 1 chapter for now, and 13 chapters later. There are 4 islands around Black Horse Island: Mangrove Island, Sand Beach Island, Rocky Island, and Seagull Island. Mangrove Island is Nami's hometown, where many caterpillars and mallards are raised. Sand Beach Island has many fragrant coconut trees, and fragrant coconut tree cordyceps are also transplanted here. Seagull Island also has a mangrove forest, but it has not yet been developed. Rocky Island, on the other hand, has always been neglected. Because the island is full of basalt pillars, and it has been mined once, it was found that there was no volcanic glass buried under the island, so it was completely abandoned. Standing on the basalt pillar of the island, List carefully identified the surrounding position, then found the direction pointed by a chi, rode the colorful whale Lolth again, and swam toward the sea. Diving to the bottom of the sea, he could see that the island was full of rocks, and there was not much silt. Many corals attached to the rocks, forming coral reefs. All kinds of fish and shrimp live in the coral reefs. List cast magic eyes and followed Lolth as she swam, constantly searching the bottom of the sea, hoping to find the golden-lipped clam and see if there could be a little surprise. Unfortunately, the sea looked infinite, but there were not many objects with magic light. Even the number of sea monsters was far less than in World of Warcraft on land. So after swimming for a long time, he did not find any magic light. When he found the light of magic retroaction, he also entered the living area of the golden-lipped clams, not far from Rocky Island. However, the reef area was far from the bottom of the sea and belonged to the silt area. The depth of the water was about 100 meters or so, and the water pressure was already very high, making breathing difficult. However, List's physique was strong after all. He and the colorful whale had experimented together. Without protection, they could dive 400 meters to the limit. As for the colorful whale Lolth, according to a chi, Lolth could dive to a depth of 1,500 meters, which was also a chi's diving limit. Usually, Lolth swam within 200 meters of the sea. It's really a large area of golden-lipped clams. Unfortunately, I don't have much fighting power underwater. Otherwise, I really want to open a few more golden-lipped clams and take out a batch of golden pearls for research. List gestured for Rose to swim around the periphery and not to invade the territory of the golden-lipped clam. Let a chi catch the golden pearl later. After observing for a while, he found that the largest golden-lipped clam was basically the same size as the one a chi brought back, which was the size of a wash basin. There were more than a few hundred of them, and the area they were distributed over was not considered large. There was no value in continuing to observe. He touched Rose's belly and motioned for her to leave. Instead of returning to Flower Town, he swam to Black Horse Island. After he reached the shore, he gestured for Rose to wait for a while. Very quickly, he switched to another horse and galloped towards the Mage Tower. He handed the golden pearl to Chris and asked her to study its properties. Only then did he return to Flower Town. However, when he arrived at the seaside of the town, he suddenly saw a few white things floating on the sea. From afar, they looked like human skulls. His gaze focused, and he quickly steered Rose towards the white floating object. When he got closer, he realized that it wasn't a human skull, but some sort of white, fruit-like object. Fruit? Could it be the floating fruit mentioned in the smoke mission? He quickly picked up one of the fruits and found that it was indeed the size of a human head. It was indeed a kind of fruit, which made him suddenly think of a slightly familiar fruit. It seems like the skull fruit that old Leathersmith mentioned before. Summoning the smoke mission. The mission was impressively completed. Mission completed. Reward, floating skull fruit. As expected, these are the human skull fruits, the fruits of the human skull tree. Old Leathersmith said that when he was a child on the Dodo Island, the local natives ate skull fruits to satisfy their hunger. List had a very good memory, and he still had an impression of the conversation from 2 years ago. At this time, the smoke serpentines in front of him had changed. Mission: does the discovery of the skull fruit remind you of your past memories? The island that was destroyed by the volcanic eruption. Old Leathersmith can no longer remember the location of the Dodo Island, but it should not be far from here. Why not find it? Reward: Dodo Island's volcano. Oh. Dodo Island's volcano? List suddenly recalled that old Leathersmith Phil once said that the volcanic eruption of the Dodo Island had destroyed a large number of skull trees, leaving the natives without a source of food. Thereupon, the natives chopped down the trees to make canoes and wandered about. At that time, the one who was on the same canoe as old Leathersmith was the author of the Diary of a Descendant of Philip Taiyang. Unfortunately, Philip Taiyang accidentally fell into the water while catching fish and died, leaving behind only a single diary, which was kept by old Leathersmith as a souvenir. In the end, it fell into List's hands. I didn't expect that the volcano on the Dodo Island had erupted a few decades ago. Who knows, it might still erupt. Charmander had always lacked a volcanic environment to grow. List had inquired about many islands in the Grand Duchy of Sapphire, but none of the active volcanoes on the islands would erupt at any time. The few active volcanoes that had eruptions in the past were all on distant large islands that List couldn't go to. I didn't expect the smoke mission to directly reward the volcano on the Dodo Island. Does this mean that this volcano is an active volcano and it is likely to find magma from the crater? Active volcanoes do not mean magma. Basically, most volcanoes can only see magma when they erupt. Usually, the magma and high temperature are hidden tens or hundreds of kilometers deep underground. It is not known if magma can be seen in the volcano on the Dodo Island, but at least it is an opportunity. Not for anything else, just the island itself was valuable. For many lords, a deserted island is a burden and has no value, but for List, every inch of land can be used. I have to get ready and find the time to look for the Dodo Island. 2 magicians were waiting in the castle. Their names were Garcia Truth and Randolph Truth. They were ordinary magicians, not young and had limited potential. Otherwise, they would not have chosen teaching as a profession. Of course, the great magician Chris Truth was also one of the factors in their application. After all, it is not common to get the opportunity to communicate with the great magician. Since you have accepted the application, you have also accepted the management regulations of Black Horse Island. As long as you do not violate the regulations, you are free in the territory. At the same time, there will be someone responsible for arranging your daily life, so don't worry about trivial things. I wish you a happy life on Black Horse Island. Thank you, Sir Viscount. Please rest assured that we are all magicians with good records and will not violate the territory ban. After a simple reception, the two set off by boat for Black Horse Island. Then List asked the servant to find the old leathersmith Phil. Phil's leathersmith shop did not move to Port Town. He had lived in Flower Town for half his life and was unwilling to move away. Although he did not accept the manservant Jesse as his son, he married a middle-aged widow and his life was getting better. However, his wife was not pregnant, and the blood of the son's child had to be taken from Old Phil. Old Phil, how much do you remember about the Dodo Island? Sir Lord, I was very young when I left the Dodo Island. I could not tell the direction at all while drifting in a canoe. However, I have heard Philip mention that 800 kilometers south of the Dodo Island is the island where he works, Hot Spring Island. I also drifted south and eventually drifted to the Hot Spring Island. The old leathersmith replied. Hot Spring Island is on the west side of Coral Island, about a day's sail away, and is the territory of an earl. Therefore, the location of the Dodo Island is roughly north of Hot Spring Island and Coral Island, but it is impossible to determine where it is. He only knows that it is 800 kilometers away. It would take about 2.5 days to travel 800 kilometers by boat, and 10 hours to ride the colorful whale Lolth. Chapter 555. The day before he set out to find the Dodo Island, another happy event came. List's grandmother had given him a green ingot potted plant on his birthday. The sprite worm was finally born. After the contract, it became List's 38th sprite worm. So far, including the sprites contracted by a chi, he had a total of 1 greater sprite, 6 lesser sprites, and 43 sprite worms. He was no longer as shabby as when he first came to Flower Town. He was not much worse than some Count families with weak foundations. He recalled meeting the widow of the Count of Cape Island at Meople's birthday party, Madame Martha Yipan. When the other party mentioned that he could get a lesser sprite by staying in her daisy castle for a while, he almost wavered. I suffered for a lesser sprite, but now that I have so many sprites, why do I still feel like I am suffering? He thought that he could see the invitation from the daisy castle, but he found that he was still brooding over the lesser sprite. What could be more cost-effective in the world than to get a lesser sprite by staying for a while? Madame Martha's appearance inadvertently emerged in his mind. She was a lady in her 30s with a dignified bearing and noble temperament, and there was an unconcealable flirtatiousness between her eyebrows. It could be imagined that in her prime, she must have been a beauty with a score of 8 or above. Unfortunately, after Meople's birthday party, he never saw Madame Martha again. They also did not exchange communication methods. There was no daily correspondence with Madame Martha, but List maintained daily correspondence with the Taro family. Coral Island and Red Crab Island maintain frequent trade relations. Flower wine, glass, and flower soap have all been a whirlwind in Red Crab Island and are well received. At the moment, in the master bedroom of the Long Taro Castle, Marquis Merlin had another relapse and was lying in bed. He was still busy writing at the small table on the bed, summarizing his life's achievements. At this moment, Meople knocked on the door and came in with a smile on his face. "Grandfather, List's letter has arrived. You certainly can't guess what happened." "I still can't believe it after reading the letter." Marquis Merlin raised his head, his face full of wrinkles, the fire of life like a candle flickering in the wind. "Did he promote to a sacred swordsman so quickly?" "No, it's about the elves." "He obtained another lesser sprite?" When talking to Marquis Merlin, Meople didn't dare to casually show off and directly said in a surprised tone, "It's a great elf. A giant kelp sprite can grow a large amount of magic herbs, and it's also a great sprite in the sea." Marquis Merlin stared blankly for a moment before regaining his composure. Encountering a wild great spirit in the sea is indeed praiseworthy, but how will one overcome the obstacles in planting a potion in the sea? The letter didn't mention this, but List did write that he had already planned for 10,000 acres of sea area by the sea to be planted with magic medicine giant algae. In that case, he must have a way to grow potions in the sea. I remember that he has always been interested in the sea and would send me a lot of oyster sauce every time. Oyster sauce is indeed an exquisite seasoning. The seafood he mentioned has a special taste if you occasionally enjoy it. Marquis Merlin nodded. All of Melissa's beauty and intelligence were inherited by List. Lee William is really a lucky guy. In the past, List wasn't valued by the Tulip family. I thought that it was because his aptitude wasn't good, so I wanted to take care of him. I didn't expect him to just not reveal his talent. In the 2 years after the enfeoffment, his development was too rapid, and he has already become a Sky Knight. There was a lot of envy in Meople's eyes, but the admiration was also sincere. He sent me the List's Mother Earth manuscript, which gave me a lot of inspiration for my cultivation. I feel that I also have signs of a breakthrough recently. Perhaps in another year or so, I'll be able to promote to a Sky Knight. I look forward to the arrival of that day. Sooner or later, the Taro family will be handed over to you. I understand. Marquis Merlin motioned for a servant to place a pillow behind his head, and then said, "That handbook is well written. Among all the heirs of the Long Taro clan, he has the deepest understanding of cultivation, and can think of many new cultivation methods. His performance is far more outstanding than when he came to visit me 2 years ago. I don't know what List's future upper limit is. Grandfather, do you think that Uncle Lee William can become the Grand Duchy's 7th Marquis?" The area of Iron Hoof Island can be divided into 3 marquises. The Grand Duke also intends to expand the Blue Blood Alliance and squeeze out 2 more marquises. If nothing unexpected happens, Lee William will be able to snatch one of the 5 marquises. Moreover, it might be the Marquis of Iron Hoof Island. He shouldn't be interested in the Blue Blood Alliance. The Blue Blood Alliance only had 1 city, and all of its resources depended on the Sapphire family. It was far less attractive than the title of Marquis. After all, who would be willing to be a henchman or a hired thug if they could become a local tyrant? Marquis Merlin paused and then continued, as for List, he is the rising star of the aristocracy in the country. He has a great future ahead of him. Perhaps the Grand Duke will start paying attention to him. Yes, he is, after all, the youngest Sky Knight in the country. I have seen countless people. List's quality is good, and he can be relied on. But the most important thing is to rely on oneself. This country is in troubled times. Grandfather, it's not as bad as you think, right? When Angela went back to visit her relatives, the Grand Duke and the Sapphire Dragon were fine. Marquis Merlin narrowed his eyes, which flickered. It was unknown what he was thinking, but his eyes eventually became turbid. Has there been any movement in Angela's stomach? Meopal was embarrassed and anxious. We have been working hard. Then, he hurriedly found an excuse to leave Marquis Merlin's bedroom. Looking at his fleeing grandson, Marquis Merlin sighed with a complicated expression. He then buried his head in his desk and wrote at a great speed, sorting out his life. The old butler brought a cup of green tea. Master, this is the new tea sent by young Master List. After brewing, the color and fragrance are much better than before. You should take a rest after drinking the tea. You have been writing for 2 hours straight, you can't continue to work hard. I don't have much time. Master, you will certainly live to a ripe old age. No need to comfort me. You and I have known each other for more than 50 years. Although there is a difference between master and servant, at this age, there is no need to pay attention to the superficial etiquette of aristocracy. Marquis Merlin smiled in a carefree manner and then sighed, my life has been wonderful. I thought I could go to my heart's content, but in the end, I still have many worries. Master, are you worried about young Master and young Master Merlin? The Taro family has few heirs. I only have 1 son, Masiro, and Masiro only gave birth to Meopal. Angela has not moved for more than half a year. Young Master Merlin and Madame Merlin are still working hard. Master, you should have confidence in them. Forget it, let's not talk about this. Is there any news about that old thing Wallace? Deep Throat Island is very calm. I heard that Marquis Wallace is very healthy and can eat 3 kilograms of World of Warcraft meat in 1 meal. The more Marquis Merlin thought about it, the angrier he got. That old guy is the same age as me, yet he is still alive and kicking. He can chase after youngsters on the battlefield and beat them up, too shameless. More importantly, the Marquis of Deep Throat Island, Wallace Pineapple Green, had many descendants. His 3 sons were already married and had children, while his eldest son had grandchildren. Chapter 556. The troubles and worries of Red Crab Island did not affect List, who went out to sea to search for Dodo Island. He carefully organized the 4 space gems and prepared all the survival necessities, from World of Warcraft, milk, potions, weapons, and even brewed tea. He patrolled Black Horse Island, Flower Town, and the surrounding waters, and held 2 meetings to arrange territorial construction tasks. After he was ready, he informed Achi, rode on the Rainbow Whale Lolth, and headed north to search. To the north and west of the Aquamarine Sea was the Devil's Sea. Legend had it that the Devil's Sea was where the Devil's Sea came and went. Even the Dragon Knight could not cross the Devil's Sea. The Grand Duchy of Sapphire had been established in this archipelago for 153 years, but apart from opening the Azure Waves Sea route, almost no one had opened a route in the direction of the Devil's Sea. Therefore, Coral Island and Hot Spring Island were basically the northernmost areas explored by humans. Dodo Island belonged to the kind of island that people wouldn't think much of even if they knew about it. Therefore, there wouldn't be any nautical charts pointing to this island. Achi could only lead List to explore the vast sea with her knowledge of sailing and her own closeness to the sea. The distance of 800 kilometers, including the delay of eating and resting, basically took 12 hours before they arrived at the designated area. Big Brother, according to the map we drew earlier, we need to use this place as a starting point and continue to search this sea area. I noticed a problem earlier. What problem? List said, this sea area is very deep. According to the general formation of islands, they are either located on the continental shelf, or formed by volcanic eruptions, or formed by the continuous deposition of coral reefs. The archipelago of the Grand Duchy of Sapphire basically belonged to the continental shelf islands. On Earth, islands like the Grand Duchy of Sapphire could be called continents, especially the Blue Dragon Island, which was almost the size of Australia, and the Iron Hoof Island was half the size of Australia. The waters of the Aquamarine Waves Sea were very shallow, with an average depth of only a few hundred meters. There was no depth exceeding 1,000 meters. Several hundred kilometers west of the Coral Island, there is a depth of more than 1,500 meters. List thinks that Coral Island and Black Horse Island may be on the edge of the continental shelf. Beyond that was the continental slope. The continental slope sloped downwards and reached the bottom of the ocean. That was the true underwater world. Of course, List was not a geographer or oceanographer. He only knew a little about continental shelves and continental slopes. There is no way to explore the deep sea himself. After all, he can only dive a few hundred meters deep. Even the Siren Achi can only dive 1,500 meters. 1,500 meters was not enough to reach the bottom of the sea. Basically, the Aquamarine Waves Sea was the continental shelf sea, and the Devil Sea was the real deep sea. No one knew what creatures lived there. Messy thoughts flashed past his mind. He continued, the Dodo Island should be a typical volcanic island. To find it, you can actually see it from the topography of the seabed. When a volcano erupts from the seabed, it will form a gentle slope. If you find this topography, you can conveniently find the Dodo Island. As he spoke, he took out thick bast paper, ink, and a quill, and drew a diagram on Rose's back. After Achi looked carefully, it was easy to understand what List meant. Well, brother, Achi understands. Next, Achi will carefully search the seabed. Brother will wait for Achi on the surface. List could not dive to the bottom of the sea. Achi was the main search force. But despite the method, finding the Dodo Island did not become easy. Although Achi dived to a depth of more than 800 meters, she could not judge the topography of the seabed. It rose and fell, and it was very uneven. Take your time. I'm ready to spend a week in this area. List, who was sleeping on the sampan, comforted the anxious Achi. The sampan was naturally stored in the gem space. As long as his chi could wrap around the sampan, he could stuff it into the gem space. He was not a fish. He could not sleep in the sea, so he had to take a boat and sleep on it. With the wind and water pearls, the wind and waves on the sea could not affect him. Achi's big shell floated on the side of the sampan. She looked enviously at Rose, who was wandering in the distance. It would be good if Achi could sleep like Rose. Rose was a dolphin. When she slept, she would open one eye and close the other, but her body was still swimming. Because her left and right brain would take turns to sleep, ensuring that she would never drown because she fell asleep. I don't envy Rose. Of course, when you sleep, you have to sleep. Not thinking about anything is the best enjoyment. List looked up at the stars in the sky and asked casually, Achi, do you know what the stars in the sky are? Stars? Achi shook her head. I don't know. Are they glowing stones? Every star is a sun, Yi Zichen said. Sun? Yes, most of the glowing stars are stars similar to the Sun. Only a few are probably planets revolving around the Sun. The world we are in is a planet. Of course, this is all my guess. List did not dare to say anything definite. He could not guarantee that this world was really a planet world. What if the sky was round and the earth was square? What if a big turtle carried the whole world on its back? Of course, this did not prevent him from showing off the ordinary astronomical knowledge on Earth to the little siren girl. In particular, the theory of the Big Bang scared the little sea monster so much that she was stunned. But after a while, she seemed to be thoughtful, and even the conversation was not so engrossed. Seeing this, List was no longer in the mood to brag about his Big Bang theory that was mixed between true and false. He simply muttered in his heart, "A cheese state seems to have inspired her magic cultivation after hearing me talk about the Big Bang theory. If that's the case, then her talent is really incredible." Thinking of this, he decisively quieted down and admired the stars in the sky alone. In the bright starry sky, a bright Milky Way hung in the sky. He didn't know whether it was the Milky Way or some other galaxy. His thoughts drifted, and his mind wandered. At this moment, suddenly, the sound of huge waves crashing came from afar, pulling him back to reality. He suddenly turned his head and looked into the distance. The night was too dark to see clearly. It seemed that some fish were making waves in the distance. It was definitely a big fish that could make such a loud sound. He immediately cast magic eyes to see if it was a sea monster. The next moment, a bright blue and white light appeared in his eyes. It was a huge whale made of magic. The magic on its body was far richer than all the World of Warcraft and sea monsters he had seen. It was rolling on the surface of the sea, leisurely slapping the water, and swimming in his direction. Chapter 557. This chapter is Wang Daorong, Reward Added. A Qi, who was deep in thought, also noticed the commotion in the distance. Even the rainbow whale, Lolth, swam over quickly and picked up List, who had put away the sampan, while making urgent, chirping sounds. She was warning them of danger. "Brother, a Qi feels a lot of pressure. It's a sea monster whale. It's huge and full of magic power. I suspect it's a high-level sea monster." List quickly said, "A Qi, be careful and follow me. We'll avoid this whale. It's so huge, it probably won't be interested in us." Yes, big whales are very gentle sea beasts. A Qi heaved a sigh of relief and followed behind List. They swam to the side and avoided the path of this huge monster. The whale monster was really huge. Wherever it passed, it would constantly slap the seawater, splashing huge waves. It was also accompanied by a strange cry. This cry was ethereal, silent, sharp, and cold. It gave people a strange feeling, as if they were in the deep sea. Boom! Splat! The whale monster suddenly rushed out of the water and then slammed heavily on the surface of the sea, creating even bigger waves than before. It rolled and swam, as if it did not have a clear goal. It did not care about List and a Qi who were not far away. It was just playing its game alone. "Brother, what is this big whale doing?" With the weak starlight, a Qi could barely see the whale monster's movements. After all, it was making too much noise. List narrowed his eyes and said thoughtfully, "Maybe it's looking for a mate." It was a prophecy. Half an hour later, the two suddenly discovered that other than the whale monster that kept rolling on the surface of the sea, there was another whale monster that was slightly smaller but also full of magic power swimming over from afar. It kept swimming in circles around the rolling whale monster, as if sizing it up. Seeing this new whale-like sea monster, the whale rolled even harder. It kept roaring as if to show off its strength. Its body was at least 50 meters long. Every time it rolled over, huge waves would roar. Moreover, it could also release magic, which was a very spectacular magic. The seawater around the whale monster was suddenly pushed away by some powerful magic power, forming a huge ring-shaped vacuum environment. But soon, the vacuum environment was filled with powerful pressure, and an explosion occurred. There was no smoke or dust from the explosion, but the huge force threw thousands of tons of seawater into the air. If there were any fish around, they would have been directly squeezed into powder by this powerful explosion. Liszt clearly felt the surging power in his magic eyes. Even he himself would be torn to shreds if he were to fall into the range of this spell. I suspect that these two whale sea monsters might not be high-level sea monsters, but should be classified as super sea monsters. The magic it cast is unprecedented, but its power is astonishing. There was no clear boundary between super and advanced. In fact, the boundaries between low-level, intermediate, and high-level World of Warcraft were basically blurred, except for the number of spells. It was not impossible for the powerful low-level World of Warcraft to kill the weak ones in the intermediate World of Warcraft. Just like the current Chocobo Loki, an intermediate dragon beast, but apart from its ability to escape, its combat power might not be able to defeat a flying dust dog. Even some ferocious beasts could kill World of Warcraft. Liszt saw with his own eyes that a hound raised in Tulip Castle single-handedly fought a low-level World of Warcraft fire rabbit. It only took it 10 seconds to kill a fire rabbit that was about to release a fireball. Speaking of which, the fire rabbit, which was raised to eat meat in World of Warcraft, was basically the shame of World of Warcraft. In short, the classification of World of Warcraft was chaotic. They did not have a clear change in nature like the Knight's warrior energy. There were only differences in physical quality, mana dissipation, and number of spells. It was not wrong to say that these two behemoths were super sea monsters. After all, with their size, just the water pressure caused by their tumbling bodies could kill some low-level sea monsters. Just like how the whale monster slapped the water on the surface of the sea with its huge pectoral fin. If Liszt rode the rainbow whale Lolth closer, he would probably be smashed into meat paste. Of course. When the battle really started, Liszt would not be so stupid as to run over and smack the whale monster flat. The sea was the sea monster's home field, the sky was the Sky Knight's battlefield. At this time, he and the whale minded their own business. In fact, there was a free live broadcast of a giant beast's courtship for him to observe and learn. It was quite interesting. After releasing the powerful magic that Liszt called vacuum water explosion, the whale monster finally set its eyes on the rolling whale monster. It slowly approached. Then, the two whales and sea monsters stood side by side and danced with each other, making sounds that sounded like they were singing together. Then, the larger whale monster slowly placed its pectoral fins on the smaller whale monster's body, rubbing against each other to find the right position. It pushed hard. It began to move like a piston. "Oh, it hurts my eyes." Liszt clicked his tongue and commented. This set of movements could only be observed with the vision of the magic eye, and the outline of the organ formed by magic light could clearly see the bright light of the mating position. Like the magic essence of the two whale monsters blended with each other, the magic power ran and mixed at a high speed. However, the painful process lasted only 30 seconds and ended in a hurry. The female whale monster seemed to be very satisfied. She happily made strange sounds and swam away side by side with the male whale monster. Until they disappeared. The sea was calm again. Achi looked at the dark sea and asked, "Brother, is the big whale gone?" "Gone. Ah, it's a pity that it's night. Achi can't even see what the big whale looks like." Liszt took out the sampan again, lay down in it, and smiled. "There's nothing to look at. It looks like an ordinary whale, just bigger." In sailor's legend, seeing a whale meant good luck. It seemed to be just a beautiful wish of the sailors, but good luck really came the next day. Achi found a gentle slope like a mountain range at the bottom of the sea. They immediately swam up the gentle slope. Finally, they saw an island with faint smoke rising from it. Dodo Island. Liszt's spirit was lifted. He expected to spend a week to find the Dodo Island, but he didn't expect good luck to come one after another after watching a whale action movie for free. On the second day after arriving at this sea area, they found the target they were looking for, the Dodo Island. Looking at the volcanic island, the shore was surrounded by lush forests, and the top of the mountain was a smoky crater. He already knew that the volcano he was looking for was here. It was probably the kind of active volcano that was erupting. Roar! 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 Feeling the breath of the volcano, the little fire dragon Leo, who was sleeping on his chest, woke up from his deep sleep and roared anxiously. List could feel his extreme desire for the volcano. Chapter 558. This chapter is Soy Milk is Not Milk. Thank you for updating. The Dodo Island was just a small island, probably not even 1/10 of Black Horse Island. The descendants of the sun who lived on the Dodo Island were less than 300 people. The entire volcano occupied 80% of the Dodo Island's area. At this time, the sun had not yet set. From where List landed, he could see the sun hanging on the edge of the crater. The faint smoke lingered around the sun, and in the process of reflecting the sunlight, there seemed to be a looming rainbow hanging. This scene was too beautiful to be absorbed in. Achi, you and Rose wait for me here. I will go to the island and search it first. Okay. Without a mount, List had to walk. He first looked at the woods on the shore. Just as he had guessed, these tall trees were human skull trees. There were ripened and unripened fruits that looked like human skulls. These were all edible human skull fruits. He had tasted the ones that were floating on the sea. After opening the shell, there was soft white meat inside. It tasted sweet, tough, and had a faint orange aroma. If he had to compare it, it was a bit similar to the jackfruit that List had eaten on Earth, but the taste and color were different. It couldn't be said to be delicious, but it was not bad either. However, the skull fruit was indeed very appetizing and could be eaten as a meal. List just glanced at the woods and did not stay for long. He climbed directly to the volcano. At a height of more than 50 meters on the hillside, there were basically no skull trees that could grow. Only some shrubs and weeds grew. Further up, even the shrubs and weeds were gone. Only the dark mountain was left. Stepping on it, List clearly saw that the mountain was covered with cracks and pores. It was simply cooled magma. He didn't know how long it had cooled down, but it should not be magma that erupted recently. Roar! The little fire dragon in his chest couldn't hold back anymore and was eager to come out. List did not let it out. He needed to determine the environment of the volcano before deciding whether the little fire dragon should practice here. Jumping. He climbed toward the crater. As he got closer and closer to the crater, he could clearly feel the rise in temperature. As they neared the top of the mountain, the temperature had already reached the level of a sauna. Enduring the scorching heat, List jumped directly to the crater and looked inside the crater. The crater was about the size of a football field. In the crater, which was 20 to 30 meters deep, there was a large piece of black rock. On the right side, there was a pool of water that was bubbling and releasing a large amount of water vapor. On the left, there was a rolling pool of crimson. That's lava. List was overjoyed. Sure enough, this active volcano was in the process of erupting. The lava was boiling, and the smell of sulfur assaulted him. He couldn't stop little fire dragon Leo from rushing out of his chest. Leo turned into a mighty fire dragon that was more than 10 meters long, and it let out a resonant roar, roar. It glanced at List, then dove straight into the crater of the volcano and plunged into the pool of dark red magma. The dark red magma, in fact, was not a real liquid. It was more appropriate to say that it was molten stone. It was slowly rolling like mud. Leo plunged in, and just when List thought that it would get stuck inside, it suddenly turned into a flame and merged into the magma. Huh! List looked at the calm magma and couldn't find Leo. After casting magic eyes, he suddenly found that the entire crater seemed to be shrouded in a faint red magic power. The red magic power at the location of the magma was the densest. Leo's magic power seemed to turn into a net, covering the magma. However, the net became thinner and soon disappeared. Liszt didn't know what this meant. He waited for a moment. He waited for Leo's head to appear. Seeing that the sun was getting lower and lower and was about to fall below the sea level, he began to feel anxious. Leo would definitely not drown in the magma, but if Leo went in and never came out, it would be a big joke. He had to shout, "Leo! Leo! Leo!" There was no response. This ungrateful and ungrateful person. Liszt cursed inwardly. He operated his dragon's chi, and his figure immediately soared into the air and fell on the black stone inside the crater. After landing, he felt that the air was scalding and the smell was pungent, as if he was being roasted. "Leo! Leo! Leo!" He once again shouted at the magma in front of him. While shouting, he endured the high temperature and walked towards the magma. The magma was probably hundreds of degrees, and even the temperature in the air was hundreds of degrees, with a lot of sulfur mixed in. When he was 10 meters away, he didn't dare to go any closer. He could only hold his breath, stop, and shout. 10 minutes later, there was no response. He had been cursing Leo in his heart. From raising the magic fire seed to rebirth to now, he had been raised for half a year. Who knows how much magic power of the infinite value of the fire dragon, how much magic potions and beef were consumed, and the price of Coral Island's beef had increased several times. In the end, without saying a word, he ran into the magma and never showed up again. He simply had no conscience. "Leo!" He unwillingly shouted a few more times, but there was still no response. At this time, the sun had completely set, and there was only a trace of light on the horizon. In the crater, one could only see by the red light of the magma. He looked at the magma that was still slowly rolling. Liszt's expression was gloomy. For the first time, he felt that his training method for the little fire dragon Leo was somewhat deficient. If it was an adult dragon, perhaps accommodating and getting used to it was the way to get along. But for a young dragon, accommodating was a failure. Perhaps ruthlessly training was the most correct way. Only in this way could he correctly establish the 3 views of it as a mount. I miscalculated. He got up, flew up, jumped onto the crater's mountain wall, and sat on it, trying to wait a little longer. After a while, a misty smoke slowly appeared before his eyes. Mission completed. Reward, Volcano of Fairy Island. The next moment, the smoke serpentines changed. Mission, Volcano of Fairy Island will become an important growth habitat for the little fire dragon. It will also become an important place for you as a dragon knight to practice cultivation. Take a good tour of the island, formulate a suitable cultivation plan, and grow together with the little fire dragon. Reward, a sprite worm. Grow together? That guy has already forgotten about me. Liszt looked at the mission's contents with a cold expression. His mood was very bad, but he was not panicking. In any case, Leo was in the volcano. Sooner or later, he would catch it again. When that time came, he would have to properly whip it and let it understand that some behavior cannot be presumptuous. From my observation just now, there seems to be no animals on this mountain. Even if there are, they are only some small animals. Although Leo is accompanied by a volcano, it still needs to eat. The sea is all around it, making it impossible for it to survive on its own. This is my chance. Liszt stood up, suppressed all his negative emotions, and regained his composure. Even if I stop its source of food, won't I still have to need it? He smiled grimly. He turned around and slowly left the crater. Chapter 559. Seaside. A crystal lamp illuminated the beach at night. Liszt sat on a rock and deliberated to communicate with a chi. Have you ever seen a dragon? Dragon? Achi really wants to see a dragon. I heard that dragons are the most beautiful animals in the world, but Achi has never seen a real dragon. Even the sea monsters have infinite yearning for dragons. Dragons are really beautiful. List finally decided to tell Achi the secret of the fire dragon. In fact, my brother has a dragon, a young fire dragon. It is called Leo. But this little fire dragon is very disobedient, even a little ungrateful. Looking at Achi's mouth wide open in surprise, he did not forget to add a few bad words about the little fire dragon. Ah! Brother actually has a fire dragon? Yes, it is a little fire dragon that I resurrected from the fire dragon bones on Black Horse Island. This is my biggest secret. The influence of a dragon is too great, so I have never mentioned it to anyone. Therefore, Achi, you are the first person to know this secret. Achi was surprised and happy, and nodded solemnly. Well, Achi will definitely protect the secret of the fire dragon for my brother. List touched her blue hair and smiled. In fact, Achi, you are my most precious secret. Who would have thought that I would have a siren sister? Hee hee. Achi narrowed her eyes and felt comfortable like a kitten. List did not lie. In his mind, Achi was far more important than Leo. His most recognized family was Achi, not the Tulip family. Perhaps the physical bloodline could not be separated from the Tulip family, but the soul was incompatible with the Tulip family and this world. Only the siren Achi, who was as pure as a piece of white paper, was his warmest spiritual sustenance. I came to Dudu Island to find a volcano and give Leo a suitable environment to grow in, but Leo forgot about me when he got into the volcano. Ah, what about my brother? Don't lose Leo. It doesn't matter. Ever since Leo was born, his body needs food. There are no animals on Dodo Island that can satisfy his hunger. Sooner or later, he will fly out of the volcano and apologize to me. As if she could imagine the posture of the little fire dragon apologizing to List, Achi said with a smile, hee hee, listening to brother, Leo is also very cute. No, it's a willful young dragon that lacks training. Maybe it's because Leo is still too young and doesn't know anything. Big brother, you can be more patient with him. I believe that one day, Leo will recognize Big Brother and become Big Brother's most important partner. Just like the legendary Dragon Knight, he stands at the pinnacle of power in this world. I think so too. That's why we need to teach Leo well. List explained his plan. I need to constantly build up my territory to support this fire dragon, so I won't be staying on Dodo Island often. I might come here every few days to cultivate with Leo. When I'm not here, you have to take care of him. Okay. And if I participate in the development order, I will be gone for several months. I also need to ask you to take care of the little fire dragon. I can't really let him starve to death. Leo was still young. Following him to the battlefield would be a burden, and there was also the risk of being exposed. Achi can catch fish for him to eat. Okay, when I find him at the crater, I will bring him here and let you two get to know each other. But Leo's character is a bit bad. You have to be careful not to get hurt by him. Big brother, don't worry. Achi will protect herself. Achi showed an expectant expression. Her eyes were almost sparkling. Even sea monsters had no resistance to dragons. In this world, dragons were synonymous with everything good, even if there were evil dragons. The little fire dragon Leo belonged to the evil dragon sequence. Humans could not hesitate to kill evil dragons one after another to get the hero title of Dragon Slayer. They could also put countless good words on any dragon. After revealing Leo to Achi, List suddenly felt a lot more relaxed. He had too many secrets and had nowhere to vent them. The secrets of the smoke dragon and the invisible dragon were easy to keep. There was no burden and he could keep them for a long time. But the little fire dragon Leo couldn't keep them. He needed someone to share the burden with him. Originally, he was inclined to tell the Count about the little fire dragon's secret and let the Count help him raise the dragon. But with the discovery of the giant algae forest, it was not impossible for the territory to support the little fire dragon independently. So he extinguished the idea of letting the family help to raise the dragon to reduce the risk of exposure as much as possible. Now, revealing the secret to Achi was the most suitable choice. She could take care of the little fire dragon when List was busy. He couldn't expect the little fire dragon to take care of itself when it was only a few months old. List didn't know how other baby dragons were born and grew up. Maybe they were born strong enough to deal with crises. As long as they plunged into the forest, they could develop steadily. But Leo was different. He was a fire dragon born on an island in the sea. He couldn't be invisible like the invisible dragon. He couldn't hunt without being exposed, and he couldn't swim in the sea to catch fish. Hunger would expose him to human eyes at any time, and then he would be captured by a powerful knight. He would be forced to ride a dragon or be transformed into a dragon lord. He was lucky to meet List. He helped him recover, saved money, and raised him up. He didn't force him to ride or ride him, and he also tried his best to find a volcano. So, after talking about the dragon for half the night, they went to sleep. The next day, List got up before dawn. He took out toiletries from the gem space and carefully cleaned up. Then he had a hearty breakfast. He hurried up the mountain. He was familiar with the road, so he could fly directly. In a moment, he came to the crater of the volcano. The pool was still boiling, the magma was still rolling, and the smell of sulfur was still strong and pungent. Leo! 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 Except for the echo of the crater, there was no response. He used the magic eyes but he couldn't see Leo. Although he was mentally prepared, there was still no response after a night, which made him feel bad. After a while, he adjusted and went down the mountain to explore the skull forest. The island was not very big, and the skull forest was distributed in a ring on the island's shore. It was very easy to scan with the magic eyes. So in the afternoon, he explored the entire Dodo Island and found the reward of the smoke mission, the skull tree sprite worm. On a much taller human skull tree, the human skull worm was happily basking in the sun. Suddenly, a lot of delicious jade powder fell from the sky. It ate it again, and then it bit a finger. In an instant, it contracted and became List's 39th sprite worm. Mission completed. Reward, a skull tree sprite worm. The skull forest had no development potential on Dodo Island. List didn't intend to develop this island. It was just a training ground for himself and Leo. So this sprite worm grass was to be brought back to Black Horse Island for planting. He quickly paid attention to the new smoke mission. Chapter 560. Sure enough, my half-baked knowledge of astronomy has a lot of inspiration for Achi. Maybe my half-baked knowledge of physics, chemistry, biology, and geography can also inspire Achi. Mages have always been searching for the truth, and my knowledge is also considered the truth, right? This world was different from Earth. In addition to the laws of physics, there were also laws of magic. Therefore, the knowledge of Earth alone could not measure this world, but the laws and knowledge of physics were obviously a very meaningful reference. Now that Dodo Island had been explored, the little fire dragon Leo had not come out yet. Since he had nothing to do, he naturally prepared to have a good chat with Achi, explaining more knowledge of astronomy, geography, physics, and chemistry to inspire her to understand the truth. He found a beach. He picked up a branch. He drew a galaxy on the sand. These are stars, the ones seen in the sky at night. Stars emit light and heat. There are many planets that do not emit light orbiting stars. These planets may be very cold, or very hot, and uninhabitable, but there are also worlds like ours. Achi kept nodding. She digested and absorbed List's knowledge. She even took the initiative to ask, "Brother, why can those planets orbit stars?" Planets orbit stars because of gravity. Any object will have gravity, and the bigger the object, the stronger the gravity. The gravity of the star can capture the planet and make it orbit it. So you see, the sun is always the sun, never far away, never close. Then why don't the planets crash into the star? If they are attracted to each other, they should be attracted to each other very quickly. About that. Liszt coughed. It seemed that he really did not know why. It seemed to be related to rotation speed and centrifugal force. We need to explore further. It seems to be related to the rotation of the planet. Just like when you spin a small ball tied to a rope, it will fly out and counteract gravity. Oh. Achi did not know if she understood, so she asked again, why can stars hang in the sky? Can't they fall? There is no concept of falling in the universe. Why? Why do you have so many whys? Liszt forcibly changed the topic. There is no why. The essence of the universe needs to be explored. Now let's talk about the relationship between stars and galaxies. According to the information I obtained, countless star systems will form a huge galaxy, which may revolve around a black hole in the center. As for what a black hole is, in the following 2 days, Liszt was either instilling what he knew into Achi, or going to the crater to search for Leo. Unfortunately, Leo did not respond. He could not jump into the lava to search, so he could only wait. It hasn't eaten for 3 days. It should be hungry soon. Even if the volcano contains the ultimate fire attribute magic, it can't be eaten by it. However, on the 4th morning after little fire dragon Leo arrived on the island, Achi, who had been thinking hard on the beach, suddenly took action. She stood on top of the shell and slowly raised her hands. Then, there was a soft chirp like that of a nightingale. Light flashed in her hands, and there was a huge explosion in the distant sea. Rumble. The explosion was so big that it was almost as powerful as the vacuum water explosion created by the giant whale monster a few days ago. It took a long time for the waves to calm down. Such a movement naturally attracted Liszt's attention. He hurriedly came over and asked, Achi, did you create a new spell? Achi replied excitedly, yes, brother. Achi heard from you that stars and planets revolve around each other, and the principle of nuclear fusion is that 2 atomic nuclei merge into one. So, Achi condensed a dynamic rotating magic circle, forced the fusion, and finally caused an explosion. Wow, my Achi is awesome! Liszt exclaimed with envy. This little siren's talent was simply amazing. With just a little bit of knowledge, she was able to create such a powerful spell. He asked again, is your spell an advanced spell or a more advanced one? It is just a form of dynamic magic circle, so it should still be an advanced spell. It has not broken through the nature and principle of dynamic magic circles. Give it a name. Brother, help me. It seemed that Achi was very satisfied with Liszt's ability to give names. He thought for a moment and said, just call it water fusion. The name directly included the 2 principles that made up the magic, which was indeed very appropriate. Brother, Achi will write down the casting plan of the advanced spell, water fusion, and you can give it to Ms. Chris for her reference. Achi knew about Chris, but Chris did not know about Achi's existence. As a matter of fact, Chris was Achi's teacher. She answered many of Achi's questions. She will be very happy to see the new magic casting plan. In fact, after you told Achi so much new knowledge, Achi still has a lot of inspiration to verify them and create a new spell. Then don't be in a hurry to write the casting plan. Grasp the inspiration first. Chris has many other advanced spells to learn, so she is not in a hurry to learn water fusion right now. Okay. Achi nodded and continued with her magic experiment. Liszt once again flew to the crater to find the little fire dragon Leo. At the same time, he summoned the smoke mission. Mission completed. Reward, Achi's new spell, water fusion. Immediately, a new mission was issued. The stubbornness of the little fire dragon has made you angry, so you have changed your attitude towards it. Now that you understand the nature of the little fire dragon, why not squeeze it dry once, let it fundamentally realize its mistakes, and then correct them. Reward: a large piece of hemp rope vine. Seeing this mission, List thoroughly understood that the smoke mission was a projection of his own spiritual power. At least in the formation of the mission, personal will occupied the active factor. It was a bit similar to the relationship of, what you think during the day, you dream at night. Squeezing the little fire dragon dry and letting it understand how to be a dragon was a problem that List had been thinking about these days. Now that it was reflected in the smoke mission, it could be said to be satisfactory. The reward of this mission is a large piece of hemp rope vine. What kind of plant is this? There were too many types of plants, and List's knowledge was limited. He had never heard of hemp rope vine. Listening to the name, it should be a vine plant, a rattan that grows like hemp rope. He didn't know what it was used for, and he didn't know if it appeared on Dodo Island, Black Horse Island, or simply in Flower Town. He didn't pay much attention to this hemp rope vine. He was thinking about how to squeeze the little fire dragon dry. At this time, the light of the setting sun barely hung down the last ray of light on the crater. The slowly rolling magma rumbled and exploded. Then, a ball of flames rushed out from within, quickly outlining the shape of a dragon, accompanied by a loud roar. Chapter 561. This chapter is titled, Forget About Giving a Name. Thank you very much. Roar. Leo landed in front of List and shouted at him directly. This action and tone meant that he was hungry and wanted List to feed him beef. You want to eat beef? List's face was expressionless, but his actions were firm. Leo, I know you are very smart and can already understand my words. Now I will give you two choices. The first choice is to continue to resist my orders and be free and slack off. Then you will starve to death. The second choice is to obey my orders and let me ride you. We will fight side by side and you will have enough meat and medicine. Leo took a step back and grinned. Roar. He rejected both choices. If that's the case, then you can go hungry. List didn't waste time and turned to leave. Of course, he still had to be wary of Leo's rebellion. However, with his current strength, the young Charmander wasn't his opponent. Charmander's fighting skills were too lacking. It saw List coming down the mountain. Charmander was stunned. Then, it snorted like a horse in disdain. Then, it flapped its wings and flew to the foot of the mountain. It wanted to hunt by itself. However, after circling around the forest at the foot of the mountain and burning a small area of human skull trees, it didn't even see a prey the size of a rabbit. It barely saw a few birds without wings. They sounded like dodos. However, the dodos went into a hole a few hundred meters away and couldn't be found. Roar. It roared unwillingly, but it was of no use. Until the sky turned dark, it still didn't find any prey. It wanted to fly out of the Dodo Island, but looking at the churning waves, it was afraid to go down. It had drowned a few times, so it had a deep memory. Without List by its side to protect it, it didn't have the guts to fly on the sea. It really couldn't find anything to eat. It flew into the sky and saw a bonfire in the distance. List was barbecuing some kind of World of Warcraft meat. The aroma spread and could be smelled even a kilometer away. However, Charmander turned around and rushed to the crater. It would rather starve to death than eat food given out in handouts. However, when he reached the crater and stepped on the scorching magma, he was just about to transform into a ball of magic power. But no matter what, he did not move. Its hungry stomach was eroding its will bit by bit. For the first time, it felt the cruelty of the outside world. List had barbecued it on purpose. The food in his gem space was prepared in advance and could be eaten directly. However, he still sprinkled some seasoning on the meat and barbecued it over the fire, spreading the aroma of the World of Warcraft meat to attract little Leo. I wonder how Leo is doing now. However, he was not in a hurry. In fact, when he saw Leo asking for food, he knew that everything was settled. Not far away by the sea, Achi rested her chin on her hand and pondered. She was still immersed in magic, trying to connect the knowledge that List had told her with magic. Not to disturb her. List nibbled on the oily World of Warcraft meat while taking the giant algae potion, and next to him was a cup of fragrant banpo milk. Even in the wild, he still ate the castle's standard every meal. He was never willing to let himself suffer. Roar! Not far away, there was the cry of the little fire dragon. He cast magic eyes and glanced in the direction of the sound. He vaguely saw that halfway up the mountain, the little fire dragon was squatting there and seemed to be looking at him. However, until he finished eating the World of Warcraft meat, the little fire dragon did not go down the mountain. On the contrary, after List closed the stall, it rushed to the crater of the Dodo Island with a roar and disappeared. You're quite patient. Well, let's see how many days you can endure. List unhurriedly cleaned up the tableware, said goodbye to Achi, walked to his simple house made of the skull tree and canvas, and began to sleep. He slept very comfortably that night. Early the next morning, List went to the crater again, took out a luxurious breakfast on the edge of the crater, and ate heartily. However, he did not see any trace of the little fire dragon. After eating, he went down the mountain to look for the smoke mission reward of a large area of hemp rope rattan to see if it was on the Dodo Island. Hemp rope rattan was probably an ordinary plant, so it was a bit difficult to find it with the naked eye. After looking for it all morning, he did not find it. At noon, he once again tempted the little fire dragon at the crater. In the afternoon, instead of continuing to look for hemp rope rattan, he rode the 7-colored whale Lolth around the shallow sea around the Dodo Island, looking for sprite worms in the sea. When he returned to the shore in the evening, he saw the little fire dragon hovering in the sky. Achi also saw the little fire dragon, which was the first time she saw a real dragon. Brother, is that Leo? Yes, but it is a bit disobedient and is rebelling against me. If it doesn't apologize, it can't eat meat. Only by being obedient can it be forgiven. When the time comes, I will introduce it to you. Maybe you can even touch it. Achi was pleasantly surprised. Ah, can Achi touch the dragon? Of course. Thank you, brother. After a while, List began to prepare the food. He lit the firewood and barbecued it, letting the aroma of the food waft around. This time, the little fire dragon hovered in the sky, letting out, oh roar, sounds from time to time. It did not leave, nor did it land. As the sky gradually darkened, the aroma of the food was enough. List glanced at the little fire dragon in the sky and slowly ate, eating very slowly. Oh roar! The little fire dragon flew closer and closer. Finally, it could not hold back and landed on the beach 10 meters away. Its eyes stared blankly at the large piece of roasted beef leg in List's hand. Its saliva dripped from the corner of its mouth and evaporated as it fell to the ground. List had observed that the saliva of fire dragons contained relatively impure magic power, which directly blended into the air. It was different from the saliva of gem dragons and metal dragons, which produced crystal ores. The same was true for dragon dung. The little fire dragon's dung was also directly vaporized. And the impure magic power excreted by the little fire dragon in List's body was definitely not dragon dung. In its magic form, the little fire dragon had no shape or structure. It was just a magic converter that could exchange magic power. Hiss! List tore off a piece of beef leg and chewed it in big mouthfuls. He always chewed slowly according to the standard nobles. But this time, it made a very loud sound, and it made a squeaking sound. Every time it smacked its lips, it was a blow to the little fire dragon Leo, whose stomach was growling. When he ate half of the roasted beef leg, Leo finally gave up being reserved and roared at List, oh roar. It wanted to eat meat. List glanced at it faintly and did not respond. Oh roar. Oh roar. Oh roar. Leo approached step by step, and its voice became weaker and weaker. By the time it reached List, it was almost pitifully begging. List looked at it and said, "Same choice as before. First, starve to death. Second, let me ride you. I will make sure you eat until you are full and you can eat top-grade beef every day." Leo raised its neck, oh roar. You don't want to be ridden? Oh roar. Are you sure? Oh roar. Then you can wait to starve to death. This island is 800 kilometers away from the nearest island. You can't fly there. Even if you fly there, you will be discovered by the humans and caught. At that time, no one will be as nice as me. If you don't let me ride you, you will be slaughtered and eaten. Hearing this, Leo took 3 steps back and put his wings on the ground to show his resistance. List calmly took out another roasted beef leg and placed it on the fire to roast. He used a brush to brush a layer of glistening yellow oil, and the dripping oil splashed on the fire, making a sizzling sound. Chapter 562. Come here. List beckoned. Leo sat in place for a while before slowly crawling towards List. Dragons have 4 legs and a pair of wings. They can fly, stand on their hind legs, crawl on all 4s, and walk like a dinosaur. However, Leo was crawling with its hind legs squatting, its forelimbs raised, and its wings propped on the ground to maintain balance. Its speed was very slow, and its posture was very strange. Just like the entanglement in its heart, it could be felt through the wrinkled scales on the dragon's face and the struggling look in the dragon's eyes. It approached. When it was only 1 meter away, it stopped, swallowed its saliva, and could no longer take its eyes off the roasted beef leg. It was impossible to know what it was like in its magic form, but in the state of flesh and blood, it had to eat blood. During the time he raised it, List naturally did his homework. He clearly summarized the little fire dragon's habits, behavior, sounds, and logical thinking. The intelligence of a dragon was definitely similar to that of a teenager, even if Leo was just a newborn dragon. Its IQ was much higher than that of a great elf. A great elf was about the IQ of a 10-year-old child. It could speak clearly and communicate normally without any hindrance, but it would not take the initiative to think about problems. Animals with higher IQ were obviously easier to communicate with. In addition to the language barrier, List and Leo could communicate with each other through language, behavior, and emotions, achieving a seamless communication. Leo could directly understand List's serpentine, and with the help of his facial expressions, he could understand the meaning. List could also judge Leo's meaning from his tone and behavior. When Leo lived on his chest and existed in magic form, they could vaguely sense each other's emotions and communicate more directly. Compared to the great elf, he could rely on the power of the contract to suppress the barrier. There was no contract between him and Leo. It was very difficult to influence the other party through communication, especially since Leo was very stubborn. It would not be easy to tame it without some means. Do you want to eat? He raised the roasted beef leg and cut a hole on it with a knife. Suddenly, the aroma of roasted meat became stronger. Leo nodded involuntarily. Roar. Same choice. First, starve to death. Second, let me ride you. List cut a leg of beef and threw it to Charmander. Charmander opened its mouth and bit the beef thigh, swallowing it whole. Then, he stared at the roasted beef leg with a conflicted gaze and did not answer List. List cut another piece of beef thigh and threw it to it. Then, he put down the knife in his hand and calmly asked, "How is it? How does the roasted beef thigh taste? This is your favorite dish. I've prepared a lot here. As long as you let me ride you, you can cultivate in the volcano from now on. When you come out of the volcano, you'll have beef thighs to eat. If he hadn't eaten, Leo might have been able to resist the temptation. However, the lingering taste of the 2 beef thighs was still in its mouth, and it really couldn't resist. It could only use its tiny forelegs to hug its dragon head and shake it frantically to prevent its will from continuing to decline. But the more he resisted, the more he couldn't change his depraved attitude. In the end, it helplessly let out a huge roar. Its body instantly turned into a ball of flame and rushed towards List. Boom! It crashed into List's body, followed the meridians of his fighting energy, and stopped at his chest. Then, List felt that Leo was trying to communicate with him emotionally. First, it solemnly expressed that it would never accept the fate of being ridden. "Are you sure you don't want to let me ride you?" Roar. "If you don't let me ride you, then don't even think about eating meat. I won't let you even if I take drugs." Roar. Leo expressed its dissatisfaction, and then it released another emotion, saying that it could help List cultivate in exchange for food. It was very determined not to let List ride it. List was a little puzzled. He didn't know why it was so resistant to being ridden. As far as he knew, the dragon of the Sapphire Grand Duke had been used as a transportation tool to transport a batch of strategic materials from the mainland back to the Blue Dragon Island. It could even transport goods, so naturally, it could also transport people. It was just that no one could become its dragon knight. Now, this little Charmander was not even willing to ride it. It wasn't even willing to ride it once. It was really displeasing. It was probably impossible to ride the dragon in one go, so List could only settle for the next best thing, and force the little fire dragon to cultivate and improve together with him. After repeated negotiations, he agreed to Leo's deal. "I can temporarily not ride you, but you must help me cultivate with all your might. You can't be lazy at all. The effect of the demonic dragon chi refinement must be 5 times better than if I take the potions alone. As for the dragon breath tempering, you must guarantee that you can't spit it out at all." Roar. Leo cried out, feeling wronged. "You don't have to feel wronged. I was the one who found the volcano for you, so it's equivalent to me giving you the most suitable training ground. Moreover, I will provide you with a batch of potions regularly to speed up your growth. It can be said that it's a win-win situation for us to cultivate together. Use your stupid brain and think carefully." After a moment, Leo agreed. Roar. Then, it suddenly rushed out of List's chest, transformed from the flames, and landed on the beach. It took the roasted beef leg that List handed over and wolfed it down. Its appetite was very big, and it had no problem eating a cow for a meal. After eating a roasted beef leg, it continued to eat the food that List handed over. It also included the eggs of the green feather duck, the meat of the fire rabbit, the milk of the banpo, and so on. In order to raise it, List had spent a lot of money. It was better for Leo to eat than for himself. After Leo was half full, Yi Zichen looked at him. He said, "Leo, don't be in a hurry to eat. Come with me to the beach, I'll take you to see someone. This person is my family. In the future, when I return to the territory, she will often come to take care of you and bring you food." Roar. Leo gave him a, "I don't want to see" look. "If you don't want to starve in the future, you'd better meet her." And so, the little fire dragon reluctantly followed behind List to the beach with a large piece of steak in its mouth. A chi had been waiting on the beach. When she saw List coming over with the little fire dragon, her 2 big watery eyes almost curved into crescent moons, and many small stars appeared. "Wow, brother, this is the little fire dragon Leo. It's so beautiful." A chi wanted to get closer, but she didn't dare to. Leo swallowed the steak in his mouth and roared directly at the siren. He did not have the slightest good impression of the other party because the other party was a lovely, beautiful, and pure siren. On the contrary, he was deeply arrogant and disdainful. Perhaps in his heart, List was barely a delivery boy, and other lives were ants. To give List face, he did not attack a chi. Obviously, List needed more. He directly touched Leo's belly and said, "She is a chi. When I am not on the Dodo Island, a chi will be responsible for feeding you. You can't hurt her, understand?" For the sake of food in the future, Leo reluctantly responded, "Roar. As a gesture of friendship, let a chi touch you now. Roar." Leo instantly bristled and roared at List with his teeth bared. Faint flames spurted from his two nostrils. This was anger after being provoked. A chi hurriedly said, "Brother, Leo is angry. A chi doesn't have to touch it, just look at it." List was a little stunned. He did not expect Leo to react so aggressively. It dared to bare its teeth at him in front of a chi. It could be seen that the task of taming it was still a long way to go. "It's my first time seeing it, so I'm a little shy." He simply concealed his embarrassment and said calmly, "Then I'll go with Leo to practice first. There will be a lot of time in the future. Leo will be friendly to you." Chapter 563. Oh. Roar. On the cliff of the crater, Leo's head drooped. He was exhausted. He had been spitting out dragon breath for a full 10 minutes, completely draining his magic to help List temper his body with dragon breath. This time, he was definitely not acting. He was really so tired that he could not even take the potion. The flame was extinguished. Shaking off the ashes on his body, List let out a long sigh. It had been a long time since he had trained so freely. The effect of today's training was equivalent to training alone for half a month. It was no wonder that the Dragon Knight was the most powerful fighting force in the world. The help of a dragon in training was too great. Leo was just a young dragon that had not even been born for a month. If he did not experience it himself, he would not be able to understand the pleasure and refreshing feeling of training with a dragon. When the dragon demon refines chi, it was like coming out of a sauna. The comfort was indescribable. When the dragon breath tempered his body, it was like getting a full-body massage. Even his bones were being stepped on. Looking at the dejected Leo, List knew that he had squeezed this disobedient little fire dragon dry. "I need about 5 days to digest what I have gained from today's training. If I do it too frequently, my body will not be able to take it. After all, the human body cannot be compared to the body of a dragon." List moved his arms and legs, feeling the state of his body, and concluded. So he said to Leo, "Rest well. This is the magic potion you deserve. I will ask a chi to prepare a pile of fish for you by the sea in 3 days. 5 days later, I will come here again and bring you your favorite beef. Then we will continue training according to today's pace." Roar. Leo answered weakly and silently swallowed the giant algae magic potion that List gave him. Touching Leo's belly, List waved his hand and said, "Go back to the volcano and train well. I don't know how long this volcano can last, so you should seize the time. I believe that with the magic of the volcano, the help of the magic potion, and my training, the time you need to grow will be greatly shortened." Roar. Leo nodded like a human. Then, he flapped his wings and dived into the lava in the crater, disappearing. List changed into a new set of clothes and returned to the wooden house at the foot of the mountain to rest. The next morning, he was awakened by the sound of doo-doo. It's the dodo bird, a species unique to this island. Even the island got its name from the dodo bird. List had seen a dodo a few days ago. It was a bird that was slightly smaller than a turkey. It looked a little ugly and could not fly, but it was good at digging holes. It would hide in a hole when it was startled. No matter what happened outside, it would bury its head and not come out. Therefore, when the descendants of the sun had no food to eat, they dug bird holes and took them out one by one. Unfortunately, the meat of the dodo was extremely unpalatable. Like eating dry firewood, it was hard to swallow. List was not interested in them at all. However, it was really disturbing his sleep to let them howl outside. He didn't want to wake up so early, so his mood became bad. He simply got up, walked out of the wooden house, and went to drive away the dodos. The dodos were about 100 meters away from the forest. It looked like they were having a restless gathering. Who knew how many dodos were going crazy? When he got closer, he found that the dodos were not going crazy, but were surrounding a black snake as thick as a bull. He knew this snake. He had hunted one in the forest of the Thorns Ridge before. It could release the dark magic vortex, the dark attribute world of Warcraft, Shadow Snake. There were a few puddles of corroded dodos on the ground. Obviously, this was the masterpiece of the Shadow Snake. But this did not scare away the dodos. They frantically surrounded the Shadow Snake, trying to peck it. One after another, they jumped and jumped, their short wings flapping like a windmill. Seeing this, List directly used his chi and rushed over. With a dash, he grabbed the Shadow Snake's neck and instantly wrapped it with chi. Then, he gently sent it into the gem space. Then he kicked the dodos away. Disperse, disperse, don't make any more noise, a bunch of unpalatable trash. After driving away the dodo bird, he began to check the Shadow Snake in the gem space. In just a few breaths, the Shadow Snake was dead. It could not be more dead. Except for Virginia Truth, who was in a soul state and parasitic in the soul storage jar, no creature with a soul could survive in the gem space. The fundamental reason, List guessed, was that the gem space belonged to a different plane, where the rules were not sound and could not support the existence of the soul. Even Virginia, whose parasitic soul storage jar was stuffed into the gem space, would be like static, unable to even dream. According to List's experiment, Virginia could dream in the soul storage jar, in a dreamlike state. She could feel the passage of time, but not strongly. At most, she could feel the slight difference between a day and a month inside. But in the gem space, this feeling was chaotic, and she could not feel the passage of time. So, the ability to erase souls was used by List for hunting. Low-level World of Warcraft could not resist his chi, so he could catch them. It was ineffective against humans with chi and high-level World of Warcraft. Because the chi would be resisted, it could not be completely wrapped, and it could not be sent into the gem space. The complete snakeskin of the Shadow Snake could be sold for more than 12 gold coins. He could not bear to let the dodos peck it, or be cut by himself. It was just right to use this trick to directly destroy the soul, leaving a complete snake body. Not bad, the dodos are very weak, and they did not hurt the snakeskin. This is the best quality. 15 gold coins should be worth it. The snakeskin could be sold for money, and the remaining parts could be used as a wine dish. 15 gold coins were easily earned, and the dissatisfaction caused by the disturbing dream had completely disappeared. He was just about to leave when suddenly he saw a cluster of vines wrapped around the skull tree. Looking straight ahead, he saw the vines climbing up the tree trunk, almost fusing with the human skull tree. There were also climbing vines on the skulls next to them. This should be the hemp rope vine reward for me. He quickly reacted and walked towards the skull tree. As he approached, more and more hemp rope vines appeared in front of him. Sure enough, it was a large piece. These hemp rope vines were not magic ingredients, but ordinary plants with small leaves and not thick vines. Some had light yellow flowers, and some had capsules. If one did not look carefully, it was really difficult to find the flowers and capsules. No wonder he could not find the hemp rope vine even though it was only 100 meters away from the wooden house. What is the use of these capsules? List picked a few and rubbed open the shell. Inside were black seeds, like cut watermelon petals. They are so small, and they don't look like they can be eaten. Maybe I should collect a specimen and some seeds, and go back to ask others. He was ready to pull off a hemp rope vine. The vine was wrapped tightly, and he could not pull it off, so he was ready to break it. However, as he increased his strength, an embarrassing thing happened. The hemp rope vine did not break at all. Even when it pulled on the hemp rope vine and broke a human skull branch that was as thick as a wrist, the hemp rope vine still did not break. It's too strong. It's called hemp rope vine. Does it mean that it's as strong as hemp rope? List's eyes quickly lit up. If the effect was really like that, the hemp rope vine would be very useful. Ropes were very useful in daily life. The ropes that humans used were hemp rope, which was a rope made of linen and sisal. Although it was strong, it was easy to rot. Especially the fishing nets used in the territory. Basically, after soaking in the water for 3 days, it would take 2 days to dry in the sun to prevent them from rotting. Chapter 564. This chapter is, Glorious Battle Song. Reward of 20,000 coins. Mission completed. Reward, a large number of hemp rope vines. After a lot of effort, List collected 3 hemp rope vines and a large number of capsules. The hemp rope vines rewarded by these smoke missions were indeed very powerful. The thickest one was only as thick as 2 fingers, but he could not tear it apart even with the strength of his dragon chi. Even the vines, which were thinner than a pinky finger, could not be torn apart immediately. Even the filamentous vines were very strong. It was difficult to cut them with a knife. They were stronger than hemp rope in all aspects. If they do not decay too quickly, they will definitely be a valuable specialty, far more valuable than hemp rope. List was very satisfied with the reward and was ready to plant them on a large scale in the territory to replace hemp rope. Unfortunately, there are no hemp rope vine sprite worms, which is a bit troublesome to plant. The effect of fertilization alone was far less than the influence of sprites. However, some of them were already very good, and he did not ask for more. He took the specimens and returned to the cabin to wash for a while. In the morning sun, he rode the 7-colored whale and left the island with a chi. Back to the territory. He had been away from the territory for 6 days, and including the return trip, he had spent a week on the island. Although the process was a bit complicated, the result was good. The little fire dragon had reached a preliminary agreement, and there was no need to worry about future training. As for riding a dragon, there was still a long way to go. In addition, he also took away a human skull worm and a batch of hemp rope vine seeds. The harvest was quite plentiful. On the other side, a chi studied the high-level magic, water fusion, and was pondering other new spells, gaining a deeper understanding of magic arrays. This was laying the foundation for her future promotion to Archmage. List did not doubt that a chi had the talent to promote to Archmage. Her talent, even if only in water, was amazing. Of course. No matter how outstanding a chi's performance was, she was not as fast as List's progress. He was now a quasi-dragon knight, which was a popular word in novels. He belonged to the category of half-dragon knight. Even if he was only a half-dragon knight, he was much stronger than the perfect Sky Knight. He was truly a powerhouse under the Grand Duchy of Sapphire. Second in the world. Oh. If Marquis Bull was still alive and still had the power of a lich, I probably wouldn't be able to defeat him. But I'm not far from being able to fight a dozen Sky Knights. I feel like I can fight 7 or 8 earls at once. He even wanted to spar with the Grand Duke and see how strong a real Dragon Knight was, that is, if the Sapphire Grand Duke had really succeeded in riding a dragon. He had guessed this result more than once. Did the Archduke succeed in riding the dragon? The Earl and Marquis Merlin seem to have guessed that the Grand Duke has already succeeded in riding a dragon, but it was already very strenuous for me to ride a young dragon that was less than a month old. It can be seen how difficult it is to ride an adult dragon. With the manpower and material resources of the Sapphire clan, apart from the first-generation Grand Duke who was a Dragon Knight, the remaining second-generation, third-generation, and fourth-generation Grand Dukes were unable to successfully ride a dragon. The current fifth-generation Grand Duke was also unable to ride a dragon for the first half of his life. His only chance was to use the sapphire dragon's injury to meet the conditions for riding a dragon. But for some reason, the sapphire Grand Duke neither announced that he had become a dragon knight, nor denied that he had not succeeded in riding a dragon. Therefore, the Archduke could now be called Schrodinger's Dragon Knight. Schrodinger's cat might be dead or alive, the Archduke might be riding a dragon or not. The sea breeze caressed his face. The waves rolled. Whether it was in the water or on the surface, the rainbow whale's swimming speed did not change much. At 80 kilometers per hour, it could swim continuously for a day and a night. The chocobo Loki and the rainbow whale Lolth were both draconic beasts. One was superior in explosive power, while the other was superior in endurance. There was nothing on the blue sea. Only white clouds floated overhead. Liszt was still thinking about the Sapphire Grand Duke and the Sapphire Dragon. The reason why he thought of this problem was because of the new smoke mission. The Grand Duke's emissary is a guest in Tulip Castle. His arrival carries the intentions of the Grand Duke. This is a choice of faction. As a follower, you have the right to choose once. Please make a choice quickly. Join the Grand Duke's camp or stay in the Count's camp. Reward, Blue Blood Knight set. It was a choice of faction. Liszt had already made up his mind. He chose to follow the Count and help the Count pursue the position of Marquis. Now, he only needed to reply to the Grand Duke's emissary and the mission would be completed. He needed to refuse or postpone it smoothly. For the time being, he could not offend the Sapphire Grand Duke. However, in his heart, Liszt did not want to follow the Sapphire Grand Duke, for no other reason than that the Sapphire Grand Duke had dragons, and he also had dragons. Everyone was a dragon knight, and no one had more dragons than the other. How could a proud dragon knight declare allegiance to another dragon knight? He would rather continue to follow his father in order to avoid this kind of humiliating allegiance. When I become a real dragon knight, have the power to protect myself and win the battle of the dragon, I will leave the Grand Duchy of Sapphire and create my own country. Moreover, maybe I can choose to overthrow the Sapphire family and dominate the Grand Duchy of Sapphire myself? When he arrived at the new port of Black Horse Island, it was already 11 hours later in the evening. The officials in charge of the construction in Newport Town quickly came to salute him. Liszt did not disturb them and went to the dock to inspect it. The Sunset, transformed from the sunken ship of the sky, has been preliminarily assembled and will probably be able to go into the water for testing in another week. But to really appear in the sea and become Liszt's flagship, braving the wind and waves, it may take a long time to explore and repair. The host of the dock was Captain Costo, the former caravan captain of the Little Kerchief Island, who has grown into a senior official of the territory. Not only did he have to preside over seaman training, but he also had to preside over shipbuilding experiments. He was busy every day. My lord, at present, the sampan workshop can produce single-masted sailboats. Although it cannot be used for long-distance sailing, it is far more efficient in offshore operations than ordinary sampans. Continue to work hard. The single-masted sailboat is just the beginning. You should learn to make brigs as soon as possible. In the process of transforming the Sunset, you should also accumulate more experience in making three-masted sailboats. I will try to dig out a group of shipbuilders from the shipyards on the outer islands to fill in the technical gaps. As you wish, my lord. Liszt did not stay in Newport Town for dinner. He rode an ordinary horse to the Black Horse Ranch, changed to the Black Blood Horse King, Lightning, and galloped to the port town for dinner and a hot bath. He took the newly produced giant algae potion from the wizard tower. He then learned about the situation of the court messenger through advisor Gort. The court messenger had arrived at Coral Island 3 days ago, ready to visit Black Horse Island on behalf of the Grand Duke and discuss the matter of following. However, because Liszt was not in the territory, the court messenger stopped at Tulip Castle and waited. Chapter 565. Riding the colorful whale Lolth, he galloped across the sea for an hour and a half before arriving at the Port of Flowers. He then changed to the chocobo Loki and galloped on the ground for an hour before arriving at Tulip Castle. It only took 3 hours for List to appear in the Tulip Castle's living room after setting off at 7 o'clock. He met the court envoy representing the Sapphire Grand Duke, a middle-aged man. "List, let me introduce you. This is Jonas Moongrass, the Count of Moonlight City. He is the Grand Duke's court envoy and has come to Black Horse Island to inspect your territory." Count Lee William introduced. Jonas had thick hair and a beard. He looked a little sloppy. List knew this man, one of the counts of the Blue Blood Alliance, a veteran sacred swordsman of the Grand Duchy. He had met Jonas' daughter, an ordinary-looking aristocratic lady, Joanna Moongrass. When Meopal got married, Joanna was the princess bridesmaid. At the Long Taro Castle, Joanna winked at List. "Welcome, Count Jonas." List greeted Jonas according to the standard aristocratic etiquette. Compared with the bearded Jonas, he was the perfect embodiment of an aristocrat in terms of appearance and temperament. Even when he was the Baron of Flower Town, he could grab the limelight in places such as banquets. What's more, now that he was a half-step dragon knight, his self-confidence was more outstanding, and his temperament naturally sublimated. As soon as they met, Jonas paled in comparison. The bearded count only felt that the enviably young List opposite him was a true great aristocrat, while he himself was just a lowly aristocrat in dire straits. However, Jonas had been through a lot and naturally would not be suppressed by a young man. He put on the posture of an elder and said with a gentle smile, "Hello, young Sky Knight, Viscount of Black Horse Island, List. I heard that the Count had arrived at Coral Island 4 days ago. Unfortunately, I left the territory to deal with some matters and was unable to receive you in time. You don't have to take it to heart. Your father has been very hospitable. I've been discussing cultivation matters with him for the past few days, and it's been very beneficial. Moreover, the Grand Duke let me serve as a palace emissary and visit the beautiful Coral Island. This is a rare opportunity for me to relax. I also hope to meet the Grand Duchy's youngest Sky Knight as soon as possible. You're too kind. Compared to a sword saint like you, Count Jonas, I still need more experience." That was how nobles socialized. "You flatter me, I flatter you," List can deal with it very skillfully. But normally, he wasn't willing to be so hypocritical and polite. Now that he had become a quasi-dragon knight, he was proud and arrogant. Naturally, he was even more unwilling. After exchanging pleasantries for a while, he handed over the role of socializing to William Lee. But it was very obvious that a young genius like him was utterly unable to continue acting inconspicuously. The topic of conversation always revolved around him. Fortunately, it was only topics such as glory, military achievements, nobility, and so on. They were all handled by William Lee. With his brother Levis's help, List only needed to maintain a smile and nod gracefully from time to time. That was until Madame Marie came to announce the start of the lunch banquet. Count Jonas did not mention the matter of followers. This was his main purpose for coming here. According to the traditions of the mainland kingdoms and duchies, the lord would recommend followers who had the momentum to catch up with the lord to their superior lord. This was called honorary recommendation. This usually happened when an Earth Knight was promoted to a Sky Knight. Only this kind of promotion would bring about a substantial increase in strength. List was in line with the honorary recommendation. However, William Lee did not give him an honorary recommendation. Instead, the Grand Duke directly conducted an honorary inspection. This kind of honor inspection was mostly done to the children of the Lord's followers. It was a very honorable move. But generally, the honor inspection was to bestow the children of the follower with a benevolent title. An honor inspection like List's was very rare. After lunch. After discussion, it was decided that in the afternoon, William Lee and List would accompany Count Jonas and several court clerks to Black Horse Island for a tour. Is this your mount, List? When they set off, Jonas saw List riding a long-legged bird and couldn't help but ask curiously. Colorful feathers, very beautiful big bird. I've never seen it before. Is it a low-level World of Warcraft or an intermediate World of Warcraft? Loki was an intermediate World of Warcraft. But there was no need to mention this. List just said, it's a chocobo. When I caught it from the mainland, it should have been a low-level World of Warcraft. But I was lucky enough to find a bloodline fruit and let it eat it. It became an intermediate World of Warcraft. Sure enough, as the nobles discussed, you are a son of glory. There are only a few people in the whole country who have an intermediate World of Warcraft as a mount, and a bird mount at that. Just like me, I used to be a member of Orders of Chivalry, and I still raise the old gray eagle that can't fly anymore. I can't bear to abandon it. Orders of Chivalry were the elites of the Grand Duchy. Their mount was a low-level domesticated World of Warcraft gray eagle. There were only 25 members, and their main task was to deliver messages. 4 hours later, the group finally arrived at Flower Town, but Flower Town was not part of List's territory, but it was leased by him for a long time. So the group lived in List's unnamed castle. The castle was too small. Only Earl Lee William and Count Jonas lived in the castle. Their attendants and court clerks lived in the town. Before dinner, Jonas watched List train the blizzard beasts with great interest. Earl Lee William, these blizzard beasts are all intermediate World of Warcraft? I heard that List once used a blizzard beast to help the eldest prince break through the walls of Fort Juniper. Do you see the biggest blizzard beast? That's Dosen, the flying dust dog that ate the bloodline fruit. Its evolution is excellent and it is an excellent intermediate World of Warcraft. The other 8 blizzard beasts are the descendants of Dosen and the flying dust dog. Although they also have 2 kinds of magic, they are more between the intermediate and low level. If Dosen can continue to mate with the flying dust dog, can it actually give birth to more offspring? It's very difficult. It seems that Dosen made the flying dust dog pregnant before its evolution was complete. By the time Dosen's evolution was complete, it was no longer possible to make the flying dust dog pregnant. His offspring have also been bred and none of them are fertile. Lee William said regretfully. Lee William and Levis were more enthusiastic than List about the birth of the blizzard beasts. When the 8 little ones reached adulthood, Tulip Castle immediately captured several female flying dust dogs and sent them to the 8 little ones for mating. However, after mating day and night, none of the flying dust dogs became pregnant. Basically, it could be concluded that the 8 little ones had lost their ability to reproduce. In fact, strictly speaking, they were similar to mules on Earth. Mules born from the mating of horses and donkeys were bigger and stronger than horses. Their vitality and resistance to diseases were stronger, and they had served for far longer than horses and donkeys. Unfortunately, because of reproductive isolation, the pelvis could not open and close, so it was impossible to give birth. Jonas sighed. That's a pity. This excellent Earth attribute World of Warcraft is very valuable in the siege. If it could be artificially bred, the nobles would definitely be willing to pay a high price for it. Lee William was deeply moved. It's really a pity. Chapter 566. All of you, rock grenade. With List's order, Dosen led the 8 to stand in a row, aimed at an abandoned stone house in the distance, and released the magic rock grenade. Boom! Huge rocks formed in the air and densely bombarded the stone house. In just one round of casting, the stone house was smashed into ruins by the boulders. The scene was spectacular. Count Jonas, who was watching from the side, couldn't help but open his mouth for a long time before saying, "Amazing." The next moment, List changed the order again, all of you, multiple rock thorns. Boom! The 9 blizzard beasts once again released the magic multiple rock thorns. Countless rock thorns appeared out of thin air in the open space, densely packed like a forest rising from the ground. The distribution area reached hundreds of square meters. Although the dense distribution was not uniform enough, the suddenness and lethality were definitely strong enough. Clap 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 clap. Count Jonas applauded and praised. With such a World of Warcraft team, the role they can play on the battlefield is no worse than an elite orders of chivalry. Especially in the knight's weakest part of the siege, the Blizzard Beast's earth magic can play an unimaginable role. Count Lee William nodded and said, "The performance of earth magic in the destruction of buildings is indeed very powerful. Unfortunately, there is no way to domesticate a second Blizzard Beast team. I am very envious that you have such an excellent son. He is talented and has such a powerful World of Warcraft to assist him in battle." On the Blue Dragon Island, many aristocratic banquets have been talking about List, thinking that he is a rising star, but I want to say that he will soon surpass us. He has just been promoted to Viscount and Sky Knight. His territory has not been developed, and there is still a long way to go before he becomes an earl. Perhaps for others, more effort is needed, but List has entered the sights of the Grand Duke. Maybe it won't be long before you and your son will be earls side by side. Lee William smiled and did not answer. List had made it clear that he would help him to be promoted to Marquis. Therefore, the battle achievements accumulated during this period of time will be handed over to Lee William, and only materials will be harvested. After watching the dog training, there was still some time before dinner, so List proposed to take them to the seaside villa to have a look and admire his giant kelp sprite, Parker. "Parker, come here." List waved his hand, and Parker, who was soaking in the water, immediately jumped out of the water and onto his shoulder. She grabbed his hair and greeted him, "List." Although the elves of the sea could not fly and had gills, it did not mean that they could not live on land. He just didn't like it. Parker was still hot-tempered, but he no longer resisted List and was willing to listen to List's orders. Squatting on his shoulder, he stared at the strangers around him with an unfriendly gaze. From time to time, he would bare his teeth and make a fierce expression. However, he managed to restrain his urge to cast a spell. The great spirits of the sea are indeed as magical as the spirits of the land. Jonas was not surprised by Parker. By the grace of the night, it has been many years since anyone in the Grand Duchy has contracted a wild great spirit. Probably all the elves on land have been contracted, leaving only the sea. "Count Jonas, how much do you know about the elves of the sea?" "I hope to learn more," List asked. Jonas touched his chin. "I myself have not contracted the elves of the sea, or more directly, they should be classified as aquatic elves, corresponding to terrestrial elves. The Sapphire family of the Grand Duchy raises a lot of aquatic elves, which have gills and fins without wings." Aquatic, terrestrial. List pondered and did not disturb him. Jonas continued, "Apart from these two differences, there is no essential difference between aquatic elves and terrestrial elves. However, the development of aquatic elves is very difficult, especially those in the sea, which have almost no value for development. So your luck is really good, not only to get a great spirit, but also to harvest a potion." After a court clerk took a pen and recorded on a piece of paper, he smiled and complimented, "Viscount List's luck is far more than just a great spirit, there are also 3 lesser spirits." List smiled and said, "My luck has always been good." With the smoke dragon's power of fate, he had almost never had bad luck since he transmigrated. Benefits that others would miss 100% of the time were 100% for him. So far, he had never failed a mission. He had to sigh at the power of fate. They were both dragons, but the smoke mission could even involve the invisible dragon and the fire dragon. It was fine if it was the fire dragon. After all, the elemental dragon sounded a level lower than the sacred dragon, but the invisible dragon was also one of the sacred dragons. He often asked himself, "So, am I a special human infected by the smoke dragon, or did the smoke dragon transfer all its power to me? Otherwise, how could the smoke mission involve a dragon at the same peak of power?" There was no answer to this question for the time being. He did not know when there would be an answer. But this did not prevent Liszt from enjoying the benefits of the smoke mission. He was only one step away from the great cause of dragon riding and was about to reach the peak of life. After seeing the spirits. On the way back, Jonas said in a joking tone, "Liszt, I am more and more optimistic about your future. Maybe I should introduce my daughter, Joanna, to you right away. I know Joanna. When she was the little princess bridesmaid, I happened to be the best man for cousin Miopol. Well, since you know her, that's even better. You are welcome to visit Moonshine City at any time. I will definitely go when I have time." This was just a courtesy. Jonas smiled and no longer mentioned it. He naturally understood that it was impossible for his daughter to catch the eye of Liszt. Those marquis families with daughters were probably plotting against Liszt long ago. Now, Liszt was the youngest sky knight in the country, appreciated by the Grand Duke. Early in the morning on April 23, Jonas and his party took the flowers to Black Horse Island. They arrived at Black Horse Port in the afternoon and were greeted by the bustling construction works. With the launch of several refurbished old ships, the throughput of Black Horse Port had reached new highs, and they had to start expanding and building larger docks and warehouses. At the same time, the construction area of the port town had been connected with that of Black Horse Port, and various workshops had sprung up. Last year, Liszt plundered a lot of craftsmen from the Eagle Kingdom. These craftsmen, with the support of Liszt, began to build their own workshops. Of course, the population of Black Horse Island was not large, less than 20,000. After being distributed to various towns, the population gradually thinned. But for a main development town like the port town, at least 5,000 people settled here, and most of the island's trade transit was also here. The development speed was naturally very fast. After meeting with the town officials, the group rested first and waited for the official inspection tomorrow. So in the evening, they had dinner and drank until they were drunk. It was no different from any aristocratic banquet. Chapter 567. The so-called patrol was more of a cursory glance at the general situation of the territory. It was impossible to examine the territory's production, population, and other conditions in detail. "Is that the Wizard Tower?" asked Count Jonas, pointing at the towering pillar-like building in the distance. Yes, it was built for Her Excellency Chris Truth, the great sorcerer worshipped by the territory. She's not very interested in the banquets between nobles, and she's been studying some kind of magic recently, so she didn't attend the banquet last night. Gort was the guide of the patrol team. Count Lee William and Viscount Liszt obviously would not lower themselves to be commentators. Gort was the most suitable person. The Wizard Tower's shape was a bit similar to the Leaning Tower of Pisa. It had a total of 5 floors. The lowest floor was 9 meters high and was the location of the Magic Academy. The second to fourth floors were 5 meters high. The second floor was the Magic Academy's student and teacher rooms. The third floor was the Magic Potion Development Workshop. The fourth floor was the Magic Equipment Development Workshop. The fifth floor was 6 meters high and was Crazy Truth's independent space, bedroom, study, laboratory, and so on. Therefore, the Wizard Tower's total height was 30 meters. Beyond the fifth floor, there was a basement floor used for storage. Count Jonas was a little puzzled. "Liszt, you didn't even build a castle, but directly built a wizard tower for wizards?" This was not in line with the style of ordinary aristocrats. Consecrating wizards was indeed important, but compared to the castle where the aristocrats lived, its importance was limited. In the social system, aristocrats were always the most distinguished group of people. Any enjoyment should be obtained by the aristocrats first, and then the other classes. Liszt could not say that he was accumulating experience for the architects, nor could he say that he was trying to win over wizards. Because of the Marquis Bull's dragon-slaying incident, the domestic aristocrats had a very bad evaluation of wizards. Therefore, he smiled, my castle is structurally different from a standard castle, so I built the wizard tower first before the design was completed. In fact, I enjoy the small castle in Flower Town and am not in a hurry to live in a spacious and famous castle. This reason was somewhat forced. Normally, aristocrats would definitely build a castle first. The castle was both offensive and defensive, which was the capital for aristocrats to settle down. However, Jonas did not continue to dwell on it and quickly rushed to the next patrol site. This patrol site was Shiitake Town's Shiitake greenhouses. Now, thousands of acres of greenhouses had been completed and were still expanding, basically reaching a scale of 2,000 acres. With the production of the ice flame mushroom, basically all the mushroom greenhouses here were planted with flame mushrooms. Liszt was still asking the serfs to continue expanding their farming area. Furthermore, he was already negotiating with Levis and his wife. Levis and his wife would send serfs to learn the flame mushroom cultivation technique and promote it on the Coral Island in the future. The income from each moo of flame mushrooms would be divided with Liszt, and the specific proportion was still under discussion. This is the territory specialty, the flame mushroom. It's a type of magic ingredient that grows from abandoned worm grass. It's a fire element magic ingredient, and we're working hard to increase its production. Gord explained. The recipe was strictly guarded, so he wasn't afraid that someone would steal the flame mushrooms after taking a look. Count Jonas looked at the endless greenhouses and asked in surprise, "How many acres of flame mushrooms have you planted?" "About 2,000 moo, and it's still expanding." 2,000 moo? All of them are planted with flame mushrooms? Sensing that there seemed to be something wrong with Jonas' tone, Liszt couldn't help but frown and ask, "What's wrong, Count Jonas? Is there something wrong with that? How's the harvest of the flame mushrooms in your territory, and how's the effect of the magic potion extraction? We've just expanded the scale, and the first batch has yet to come down." Jonas nodded and said to Lee William, "Count Lee William, didn't you warn Liszt?" Lee William was confused. Warn him about what? Liszt was the same. Is there a problem with my flame mushrooms? If there are no accidents, the quality of the flame mushrooms in these 2,000 moo will definitely be very poor, and the efficacy of the magic potion extraction will also be greatly reduced. Why? It seems that you really don't know enough about abandoned worm grass. Jonas said regretfully, although there are no elf restrictions on the growth of abandoned worm grass like mushrooms, the scale of cultivation is still limited. Within a radius of 1 million square kilometers, if it exceeds 1,000 moo, it will greatly degrade. Some varieties will even degrade after exceeding 600 moo. There's such a saying? Liszt was very puzzled. Why is that? As far as I know, the magic power of abandoned worm grass is related to the weave. Weave? The one who was surprised was not Liszt, but Count Lee William. Count Jonas, the weave you mentioned, is it the legendary weave that only magic shooters can touch? Yes, according to those magicians, the world is surrounded by the weave, and whoever can touch the weave can advance to magic shooter. Jonas shook his head. Unfortunately, I can't tell you more information, because even the court magicians can't figure out the weave. In short, abandoned worm grass is likely to be restricted by the weave, which is why it can only be grown on 600 to 1,000 moo within a radius of 1 million square kilometers. Restrictions of abandoned worm grass. The existence of the weave. This was undoubtedly a major blow to Liszt's ambition of the flame mushrooms. The total land area of the Grand Duchy of Sapphire was about 2 million square kilometers. Including the territory of the sea, it was only about 6 or 7 million square kilometers. If he were to plant them all over the island, he would only be able to plant about 6,000 acres of land. As for Black Horse Island and Coral Island, they obviously did not reach an area of 1 million square kilometers. In other words, if Black Horse Island could be planted on 1,000 moo, Coral Island could not be planted. There is such a restriction. Liszt was a little overwhelmed. He also planned to rely on the continuous expansion of the flame mushrooms to meet the increasing demand for potions in the future. Jonas immediately said, "This is really a pity. You need to shovel the excess flame mushrooms to make sure that there are only 1,000 mu. But you need to explore the specific number, because the cultivation density and variety differences of different abandoned worm grass will lead to different restrictions of the weave. It seems that this is the only way." List did not doubt that the other party was lying to him. The new batch of flame mushrooms would soon mature, and then he would know whether the quality had degraded or not. Lee Williams suddenly asked, "Count Jonas, do you also have abandoned worm grass in your property?" "Of course, my Moonlight City has blue matsutake, which is a kind of abandoned worm grass with water attributes. If List is willing, I can use the cultivation technology of blue matsutake in exchange for the cultivation technology of the flame mushrooms. Blue Dragon Island is far from Black Horse Island, and there is no conflict between us." List quickly restrained his mood and responded, "Blue matsutake?" He replied, "Blue pine mushrooms? I think this kind of cooperation is possible." Jonas added, "The trade of abandoned worm grass can be more profitable. I can help you contact aristocrats who meet the planting conditions and have abandoned worm grass to participate in the multilateral trade of abandoned worm grass." The restrictions of the weave. As a result, the area where abandoned worm grass could be planted was limited. Therefore, if every aristocrat wanted to sell their abandoned worm grass, they would trade it to aristocrats far away from them, with some terms attached. The most important thing was to limit the spread of abandoned worm grass and prevent it from eventually flowing back to their own area, leading to the degradation of the species. However, the Grand Duchy of Sapphire was so big that there were always a few potential customers for the flame mushrooms. Chapter 568. This chapter is a reward for the leaders, World Awakening Bureau. It will be 1 watch for the time being and 5 more will be added later. The weave. It was a new word that List had never heard before, but it was not the right time to investigate what the weave meant. List was still accompanying Count Jonas, patrolling his territory. After patrolling Mushroom Town, he went to Kelp Town, but neither town had been built yet, so there was nothing to patrol. Then he went straight to Red River Town, patrolled the mangrove forest at the mouth of the Red River, and saw a slightly larger green caterpillar mallard breeding base. Mallard ducks were capable of water archery, and ordinary serfs were only responsible for raising them without killing them. Traps were used to hunt the mallard ducks, and an apprentice knight was called in to shoot them. Of course, so far, except for a few that List had killed, the other mallard ducks were not killed. In order to continue breeding new mallard ducks, only those duck eggs that could not be hatched were included in the menu. There were 3 mangrove forests on Mangrove Island, Red River Estuary, and Seagull Island, all of which could be used to breed green caterpillars and mallard ducks. At noon, they enjoyed a picnic in Horse Town. In the distance, the black blood horse was undoubtedly very eye-catching, but no one would know that it was a group of dragon horses without careful identification. The identity that List arranged for them was World of Warcraft stallions. Count Jonas did not doubt that the number of dragon creatures was very small. He did not think that there would be dragon creatures on a small island like Black Horse Island. But even if it was just World of Warcraft stallions, Jonas still praised, once this batch of World of Warcraft stallions is bred, it will certainly provide stronger combat power for your orders of chivalry. It is a huge fortune to have your own World of Warcraft stallions on the island. Horses were generally only found on large islands such as Blue Dragon Island and Iron Hoof Island. It was difficult to find them on small islands. There was a group of black blood horses on Black Horse Island, which was rare. But then again, the quality of the black blood horse was slightly worse than the Grand Duke's blue blood horse. Count Jonas's team carried a magnificent blue-blooded horse. Obviously, this blue-blooded horse was part of the blue-blooded knight's suit. The tall, majestic blue blood horse was almost on par with Lightning, the king of black blood horses. List said with some emotional performance, "It takes a lot of years to grow the horses, and this pasture on Black Horse Island is a little small and not very suitable for raising horses. It's indeed difficult to sell them to the public, but it shouldn't be difficult to supply your own orders of chivalry. Indeed. In the afternoon. After inspecting the thorn plantation in Thorn Town, he went to Green Tea Town to taste a few cups of bitter green tea. Like many people, Jonas did not immediately fall in love with the taste of green tea. He still needed time to accept this new tea that was completely different from the sweet and fishy milk tea. Fortunately, the production of green tea was very low, and Liszt was not in a hurry to promote it. He just had to take it slow. The last stop of the territory tour was Newport Town. Liszt did not take people to the dock, but simply looked at the sampan workshop. Gort said, "Count Jonas, court clerks, our sampan workshop can produce small sampans and single-masted sailboats, but we do not have the technology to manufacture two-masted sailboats and three-masted sailboats. This can only be bought from the great nobles. The technology value is too high. The territory does not have the extra financial resources to buy technology for the time being. We all buy old ships for refurbishment. At present, trade is only between Coral Island and Black Horse Island. Sometimes we go to Beer Island, so ship manufacturing technology is not urgently needed. It may not be needed for a long time. Yes, you can buy it from the shipyard of the Sapphire family." Liszt said, "In fact, I want the palace's fast sailboats. Unfortunately, the Grand Duke does not sell them to the public. We can only use slow merchant ships to transport goods, which wastes time and efficiency." Everyone wanted a fast sailboat. However, the Sapphire family firmly grasped the manufacturing technology of three-masted sailboats and did not spread it to the outside world, so that no one could compete with the Sapphire family on the sea. Only the Grand Duchy of Sapphire has the technology of two-masted sailboats, which makes it impossible for the mainland kingdoms to compete with the Sapphire family for sea control. In the absence of the Dragon Knight, the mainland kingdoms can only be beaten passively. In this way, the territory tour was over. Under the moonlight, the group returned to the port town. In the temporary guest house, Count Jonas finally got to the point before the dinner began. "Count Llewellyn, I came to Black Horse Island on behalf of the Grand Duchy of Sapphire to conduct an honor inspection of your follower, your son, Viscount Liszt. Now that the territory tour is over, everything on Black Horse Island is thriving, in line with the requirements of the Grand Duke. You've worked hard." Llewellyn nodded. Jonas continued, "Now, on behalf of the Sapphire Grand Duke, I ask you, are you willing to accept the Grand Duke's recruitment of Viscount Liszt?" Llewellyn responded, "I accept the Grand Duke's recruitment of Liszt. If Liszt is willing to follow the Grand Duke, I sincerely wish him to fight for glory for the Grand Duke. So, Viscount Liszt, in the honor inspection, you have met the criteria of the Grand Duke's selection of followers. Are you willing to accept the Grand Duke's recruitment?" Liszt responded calmly, "It is my supreme honor to be valued by the Grand Duke, but I hope to postpone it for a few years. I now hope to help my lord, my father, Count Llewellyn, to establish more military exploits and bring more glory to the family." Jonas was not surprised. As early as in the previous chat, he had already vaguely received hints from Llewellyn and Liszt that Liszt wanted to help Llewellyn fight for the marquis position. This was a good excuse, and no one could say anything against it. "I respect your choice, and I believe the Grand Duke will understand your choice." Jonas nodded to the entourage behind him, and then said, "No matter what you choose, it does not hinder the Grand Duke's attention to you. As the youngest Sky Knight of the Grand Duchy, you have proved yourself on the battlefield. You deserve the glory of a blue-blood knight." He paused. He solemnly said, "On behalf of the Master of the Sea, the Lord of all the islands, the great Sapphire Grand Duke, I will confer upon you, Lord of Black Horse Island, Viscount Liszt Tulip, an honorary member of the Blue-Blood Orders of Chivalry." "Thank you, Grand Duke. Liszt is willing to fight for glory for the Sapphire family." Liszt bowed. He received his own blue-blood knight suit. A set of exquisite mithril armor, blue-blood armor, a cast-sharp fine gold longsword, blue-blood knight's sword, a rockwood spear with a tip made of a mixture of fine gold and orichalcum, blue-blood knight's spear, also a set of half-body mithril horse armor, blue-blood light horse armor, a bow made of special wood, blue-blood cavalry bow. There was also a blue-blood horse that he had previously known. This was an adult male horse that had been sold. One by one, he received the blue-blood knight's suit. List officially became a non-staff member of the Blue-Blood Orders of Chivalry, an honorary member. The suit he received was certainly much better than the ordinary knight suit, but for the Sky Knight who no longer needed to charge and change to sword fighting, this suit represented more honor. Well, my task is complete. Count Jonas clapped his hands, and the ceremony was over. Chapter 569. Mission completed. Reward, Blue-Blood Knight set. When the camp made the choice, the Blue-Blood Knight set was naturally in hand, and a warm banquet began. Count Jonas set off for Blue Dragon Island the day after the banquet, April 26th. He agreed that a month and a half later, on May 10th, he would gather all the nobles suitable for trading cordyceps to come to Black Horse Island for the flame mushroom technology trade. Before he left, he made another request. Viscount List, the new delicacies made by your chef, Mrs. Abbey, are really tempting. I hope to lead a team of chefs to learn a few special delicacies from Mrs. Abbey when trading cordyceps. The Count handles the cordyceps trade for me. Chef exchanges are naturally not a problem. You can send chefs to learn. I believe that as long as it is not the dishes that can be passed on to children, Mrs. Abbey is willing to carry them forward. Food does not make money. Except for some private dishes, which are included in the castle's exclusive menu, most of the delicacies have been handed over to the restaurants in Flower Town and Port Town. Tulip Castle, Falcon Town, Gravel Castle, and Beer Castle have all sent chefs to learn from Mrs. Abbey. List didn't mind Count Jonas bringing these delicacies to Blue Dragon Island. It would be very interesting to be able to carry forward the home-cooked dishes. At least with the spread of these dishes, the names of Flower Town and Black Horse Island will also be widely spread. Expand his popularity. Mission, under the influence of the contract, and under the guidance of you and the Siren, the giant kelp sprite Parker has become more and more humanized and has become a great sprite that can communicate normally. Why not let its vocabulary break through 1,000? Reward, Migrating Flamingo Flock. This was the latest mission. After sending away Count Jonas and his party, the territory immediately calmed down. List did not forcibly speed up the progress of the mission. With a Chi teaching Parker, he was very relieved. He also did not pay attention to the reward of the mission. In more than 2 years, he had completed more than 110 missions and was already numb to the reward. Anyway, the reward will not run away. Sooner or later, why bother thinking about it before getting it? As long as it is not a chain mission, the content of the reward is not worth the trouble. He arrived at the Mage Tower early in the morning and met with Crazy Truth. Without any pleasantries, he took out the 3 magic casting plans He had recently written. The first was an advanced spell, Water Fusion, the second was an ordinary spell, Water Cannon, and the third was an ordinary spell, Water Aura. List had witnessed the water spiral fusion with his own eyes. It was one of the most destructive spells among the various advanced spells. The water cannon was like a high-pressure water gun that attacked the water current. Its power was average. The aura of water was very special. It summoned a ring of water around the user, and it could automatically defend against attacks. Sir Viscount, where did you get these 3 types of water magic? I've never seen or even heard of this kind of magic. Looking at their casting methods, they seem very novel. Chris was born in the goat gathering. She was very knowledgeable. After looking at the casting plan, she could tell that the 3 types of water magic were unique. List said faintly, it was exchanged from outside. It might not be in the possession of the Grand Duchy of Sapphire. Chris solemnly put away the casting plan. It seems like it was created by a magician from the mainland. I need some time to study it. They are very interesting. Chris, let's put the matter of magic aside. I came here today to ask you if you've heard of the weave. Weave? Yes, the weave. List explained the limitations of the abandoned worm grass and the weave in detail. I'm currently ordering people to study whether the quality of the flame mushrooms is related to the scale of farming. If there is a connection, then the existence of the weave is certain. After all, this is related to the advancement of a magic shooter. I think you should pay more attention to it. Chris shook her head. I'm sorry, I've never heard of the weave before. However, since the weave is related to magic shooters, I still want to study it. Sir Viscount, I want to be in charge of studying the relationship between the flame mushrooms and the weave. That's fine. You're a magician and have a keen sense of magic. I'll be at ease leaving this to you. In addition, I'll trade new abandoned worm grass with the other nobles in a month and a half. When the time comes, you can study them. Thank you, Sir Viscount. He left the wizard tower. List was still thinking about the weave. He had a feeling that the weave was not as simple as it seemed. The abandoned worm grass was just one of the functions of the weave. Even the elves and dragons were related to the weave. In many legends, magic shooters are powerful magicians who can fight dragons alone. From this, it can be seen that advancing from an archmage to a magic shooter is a qualitative leap similar to that between a sky knight and a dragon knight. Perhaps this qualitative leap is related to the weave? According to the simple information provided by Jonas, the weave enveloped the entire world. Then can the weave be seen as a manifestation of the laws of magic? Just like how the Earth is a planet with pure physical laws, the weave represents the laws of magic. His imagination ran wild. Why can elves farm, and only elves can grow magic potions? Are elves a node of the weave? Relying on nodes to output magic and cultivate magic potions. Similarly, why were dragons so powerful? Were they also a type of node of the weave, using magic to influence the laws of physics? Chapter 570. The weave was a new field of knowledge that Crazy and Achi had never come into contact with before, so they had to explore it on their own. However, List was inspired by the internet nodes and had his own set of conjectures about the magic net. He was inspired on the spot, and he was prepared to write an imaginative magic book about the relationship between the magic weave, elves, and dragons. Although he was a true knight, a half-step dragon knight, he was still a dragon knight. However, it did not stop him from making achievements in the field of sorcerers. The two magic books about magic theories, Interaction Theory of Tri-State Magic Circles and Reality and Demonstration of the Unification of Triangle Theory and Magic Circle Structure, were enough to establish his position in the Circle of Truth. It must be known that even Chris and Achi, the two great magicians, had given full affirmation to his theory. This was much more magnificent than those ordinary mages who were fumbling around with some bullsh** T alchemy, fireball enhancement, and so on. This was because this was a work that looked at the essence through phenomena. It was similar to Einstein's theory of relativity in the physics circle. It was a study of theoretical physics. He, on the other hand, focused on theoretical magic power research. Now that he had a new theory, he was preparing to write a book titled Speculations on the Relationship Between the Weave Nodes, Elves, and Dragons. Perhaps thousands of years later, many great mages would have to rely on this magic book to advance to magic shooter. Humans could even rely on this book to mass-produce elves and dragons. That won't do. I can write this book, but I can't publish it. Just like my previous two books, it can only be circulated within the territory. It's not time to promote this knowledge to the public yet. It wouldn't be a good thing if it inspired mages from other places. Essentially, List was still afraid of mages. He didn't want to repeat the mistake of the Sapphire Grand Duke and the Sapphire Dragon, which was a dragon-slaying incident. Time passed in a flash. Before he started writing his new work, he rode the 7-colored whale, Lolth, and sailed to Dodo Island with a chi. After arriving at Dodo Island, he summoned little fire dragon Leo at the mouth of the volcano. Roar! The flames rushed out of the lava and turned into a fire dragon with black and red scales. List didn't know if it was an illusion, but he realized that Leo had grown bigger in just a few days. After asking a chi for her opinion, it was clear that Leo had indeed grown bigger. It could be seen how important an active volcano with magma was to the growth of a fire dragon. Eat, this is beef from Red Crab Island. In order to get your favorite beef, I have bought all the idle cattle on Coral Island. List took advantage of Leo eating to lovingly caress it to improve their relationship. Leo didn't even raise his head. Roar! There is not much beef left on the Coral Island. I have to go to the Red Crab Island to buy beef at a high price. It is not easy to feed you. However, I will only come here once every 5 days to cultivate with you. When I receive the development order, I might not even come here to cultivate for several months. Without my support, how could you live so comfortably? Words might not be as effective as food, but after a long period of influence, it would definitely have a brainwashing effect, and little fire dragon Leo would eventually accept him. He could see it now. Dragons were too arrogant. Even if they were only young dragons, they still had an innate arrogant personality. To successfully ride a dragon, it was necessary to deepen feelings over time, to soften the arrogance of the dragon bit by bit, and finally to become a partner fighting side by side. In fact, he even faintly discovered that there was a flat area on the back of a dragon's shoulder that was extremely suitable for riding. It might even be related to a dragon knight, or more accurately speaking, it might be a contract position. Once he rode on it, unexpected changes would occur. As for why he thought so. After his enthusiasm for riding a dragon cooled down, he carefully pondered and discovered it. Because when he saw Sapphire Grand Duke riding a dragon in Fort Juniper, he clearly saw that Sapphire Grand Duke was standing on the dragon's back, not sitting on it. Whether it was the Sapphire Dragon, the Invisible Dragon, or the little fire dragon Leo, their neck and shoulder blades all had a suitable place to ride. There was no need for the Grand Duke to act cool by standing on the dragon's back instead of sitting in a suitable position. So the Grand Duke probably didn't become a dragon knight. He might even exist in another form, the Lord of the Dragon Field. List guessed. Back then, Annette Sapphire wanted to become the Lord of the Dragon Field. After he and the Magic Goat family were annihilated, the Dragon Field Lord technique probably fell into the hands of the Sapphire family. The Marquis Bull and the Magic Goat family's mages severely injured the Sapphire Dragon and transformed it into a lich, which might have prompted the Grand Duke to pick up the technique and become the Lord of the Dragon Field. That was how the battle was reversed. The Marquis Bull was beaten back to his original form and imprisoned. However, List could not guarantee that his inference was correct. He had never seen what a dragon knight looked like, so it was hard to tell whether the Grand Duke standing on the dragon's back represented the Dragon Knight or the Lord of the Dragon Field. But this did not prevent him from coveting the area above Leo's shoulder blade. He could now touch Leo's body at will, but he could not turn over and ride on it. So it would take time to unravel the secret of that area. Chapter 571. This chapter is for the Guild Master, Glorious War Song, 1 chapter for now, 5 chapters in the future. Speaking of which, just from everyone's rewards, OL, by Ode 33 chapters. Mission completed. Reward, Migrating Flamingo Flock. There was nothing much to say about the mission reward. What caught List's attention was the new smoke mission. Mission, the migration of flamingo flock will attract the predation of a high-level World of Warcraft. Although it is temporarily attracted by the purple sand crocodile, it will invade your territory at any time and continue to prey on flamingo flock. Please hunt down this World of Warcraft and protect your territory. Reward: many types of abandoned bug grass. Those abandoned bug grass belonged to List, but it was still used as a reward for the smoke mission. It seemed a little sneaky. But the mission content attracted him. Flamingo flock will attract the predation of a high-level World of Warcraft? He was shocked. He was not clear about the combat power of a high-level World of Warcraft, but it was definitely not to be underestimated. It seems that this high-level World of Warcraft was attracted by the purple sand crocodile, which means I can calmly prepare. Maybe I can go take a look at the purple sand crocodile first. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. Now that the smoke mission even stated the location of a high-level World of Warcraft, there was no reason for him not to investigate. As a Dragon Knight, he would not be so embarrassed when dealing with a high-level World of Warcraft. As long as he understood the combat style of a high-level World of Warcraft, he would be able to measure the strength of the enemy. Purple Sand Crocodile, I'm afraid the Earl can't keep that intermediate World of Warcraft. In order to let World of Warcraft multiply on the island and continuously produce new World of Warcraft, the Earl ignored the Purple Sand Crocodile. Unfortunately, after so many years, the Purple Sand Crocodile did not have a mate to mate with and give birth to new Purple Sand Crocodiles. After returning to the territory, soon, he received a report from Gort. Sir, a group of strange birds with red feathers flew over from the Red Estuary mangrove on our island. These strange birds can spit fire magic, fireball. They are fighting with the mallard ducks for the Red Estuary mangrove forest and have already killed a few mallard ducks. This is fiery bird. How did you guys handle it? Guild leader Paris and guild leader Marcus are leading their respective knights and are currently surrounding those strange flamingos. However, there are too many flamingos and quite a few knights have been burnt. For the time being, the mallards and the flamingos have each occupied half of the mangrove forest, but they have not stopped fighting. I'll go take a look. Right, have you figured out how to deal with it? Commander Paris thinks that the flamingos are the same as the mallards, attracted by the green caterpillar. Maybe we can catch all the flamingos and throw them on Seagull Island to raise. We also dropped a large number of green caterpillars on Seagull Island. The breeding was very successful, and we haven't dropped mallard ducks yet. That's a good way to deal with it. Let's do that. List nodded in appreciation. Flamingos were new to World of Warcraft, and they didn't know how to raise them yet. It would be better to send them to Seagull Island to develop and slowly learn how to raise them. Moreover, the high-level World of Warcraft was coming for the flamingos. If it was strong enough and preyed on Seagull Island, it would also reduce its invasion of Black Horse Island. When they arrived at Red River Town, it was almost dark. The patrol led by Paris and the Orders of Chivalry led by Marcus were still trying to catch the flamingos. With the serfs constantly feeding, the mallards were basically no longer afraid of humans, so there was no need to catch the mallards. Sir! Sir! The knight saluted List. Waving his hand, indicating that there was no need to be polite, List directly asked, Commander Marcus, Commander Paris, how is the situation here? The mithril armor of the two commanders were stained with a lot of duck and bird feathers, and they looked a little embarrassed. Marcus reported, it is estimated that there are more than 500 flamingos invading the mangroves, most of which are adult flamingos. There are more than 300 adult mallards and more than 400 juvenile ducklings in the mangroves. It has been confirmed that more than 30 mallards and more than 20 flamingos have died, and the ducklings have run away. Paris said, the patrol is responsible for catching flamingos. So far, more than 50 flamingos have been caught, most of which are injured. The flamingos, with their mouths and legs tied, were placed in cages on the side. These flamingos had fiery red feathers, huge black beaks, and slender legs. They looked a bit like birds such as cranes and storks. Keep a few to taste, and send the rest to Seagull Island to let them live on Seagull Island. List changed into a set of armor. I will take you to catch the remaining 400 or so flamingos. We must not let them destroy the mallard duck farm that has been improving. Yes, sir. The Dragon Knight personally catching low-level World of Warcraft was like using an anti-aircraft gun to kill a mosquito. But there was no other way. If the knight caught the flamingos slowly, who knew how long it would take? Perhaps by the time the flamingos killed all the mallards, they would not have finished catching them. There were more than 10 elite Earth Knights in the territory, but they could not fly, so they could only use arrows to deal with birds in World of Warcraft. Flamingos were very suitable for large-scale domestication, so no one was willing to shoot them. So, List personally took action. He activated his dragon's fighting energy. His body was like a sharp arrow, directly shooting into the sky. A flying flamingo did not even have time to react before its beak was grabbed, and then its legs were pulled. Holding the flamingo's head under its wing, List directly threw it in front of the knight. The knight on the ground immediately grabbed the flamingo that could not be pulled off, tied it with a rope, and stuffed it into the cage. Before he could finish stuffing this one, List had already grabbed the other flamingo and threw it down in the same way. In a short moment, List, who was suspended in the air, was like a god descending to earth, killing in all directions in the flock of flamingos. The flamingos reacted and shot fireballs at him. However, List pulled out the Sky Cutter greatsword with a backhand. With an ordinary chi move, he broke through the small fireballs and landed lightly on the ground. After a short breath, he rushed into the sky again. 10 or 20 flamingos were captured in one go. After 3 hours, the sky was completely dark. List, who was using Magic Eye, could see the magic of the flamingos as bright as a light bulb. So they could not stop List's capture at all. Nearly 300 flamingos were caught by List, and only a little more than 100 were left. They had already escaped, and no one knew where they escaped to. Captain Marcus, once the flamingos come back, you continue to capture them. The flamingos that are seriously injured and unable to heal themselves, send them directly to the castle to store food. The flamingos that are slightly injured and not injured, send them all to Seagull Island and let them rest there. Yes, my lord. List shook the black ash and feathers on his armor. Although he was a dragon knight, he was still hit by the flamingo's fireballs several times, but only his clothes were damaged. My lord, your strength is getting stronger and stronger. Paris could not help but sigh softly as she escorted List to the port town. The gap between her strength and List's strength was getting bigger and bigger, and it had reached an insurmountable gap. List looked at his Black Dragon gang and light mage followers and also felt a little emotional. At the beginning, the powerful thief was his important bodyguard. Who would have thought that after more than a year, he would no longer need anyone's protection? How is your progress with light magic? Light bomb, dust of light, and refraction, these 3 ordinary magic have been fully mastered. Unfortunately, there are no more ordinary magic to learn. Now there is only one high-level magic, shadow projection, to learn, but it is too difficult. Chris has told me many times about the dynamic magic array, but I still have no clue. Take your time. Is your body still being eroded by the magic of the light dragon? After learning light magic, it has slowed down, but it has not been fundamentally solved. I have about 10 years of life left. When I first met you, I had a hunch that I still had 10 years of life left. Now that a year and a half has passed, I still have 10 years of life left. I have earned a lot back. Paris gave a carefree smile. Her IQ was not outstanding, but her personality was very cheerful. List looked at her and comforted her softly. Don't worry, I will solve the problem of the light dragon magic erosion for you. I believe this is not too big a problem for me. As a dragon knight of the fire dragon, he was confident that as long as he figured out the working principle of the dragon magic, he could solve the drawbacks of the Black Dragon gang. Chapter 572. It may be beautiful to die in the prime of one's youth. List did not care about Paris's thoughts. Sooner or later, he would study Paris's identity as a black dragon, which would be a good inspiration and guidance for the application of dragon magic. Black dragon or white dragon are somewhat evil to humans, but they seem to be good for dragons. According to Paris, if she does not change, she will be swallowed by the magic of the light dragon and eventually return to the light dragon. Being a black dragon seems to be a way of cultivation. If the little fire dragon Leo can learn it and sprinkle 3,000 drops of blood, to create 3,000 black dragons, wouldn't his growth be rapid? Of course. For the time being, List has not even finished riding a dragon. It is still too early to solve the secret of the black dragon. After resting for a night in Port Town, he rode the colorful whale Lolth early the next morning and swam to the beach at the southwest end of Coral Island, which was the territory of the purple sand crocodile. I don't know if that World of Warcraft has hunted the purple sand crocodile. If the hunt is over, then it will be in vain. The beach where the purple sand crocodile inhabits is very large, but for List, having magic eyes is equivalent to being equipped with a radar, and it is easy to find the whereabouts of the purple sand crocodile. It is lurking in the sea at the edge of the beach and has not been hunted. List did not disturb it, but waited by the side. Where is the advanced World of Warcraft? He looked around and did not see the smoke mission prompt of the advanced World of Warcraft. Fortunately, he has enough patience. 2 hours passed in a blink of an eye. When the sun was high, the purple sand crocodile finally could not stay in the sea and began to climb ashore. There are many unknown trees growing on this beach, and the purple sand crocodile has a large range of activities, all the way along the beach to the depths of the forest. List motioned for Lolth to wait on the shore, and he hurried to follow the purple sand crocodile. After a while, the purple sand crocodile crossed the beach and mud and turned into a swamp lake. Its huge body quickly merged with the mud, leaving only its head above the water, waiting for the arrival of its prey. List climbed a tree not far away, acting as the hunter of the mantis stalking the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind, waiting for the high-level magical beast to come. In a flash, noon arrived, but the purple sand crocodiles still hadn't found their prey. They were still waiting, and advanced World of Warcraft still hadn't appeared. List was still not in a hurry. He took out the lunch that he had prepared and began to eat on the tree. He usually ate delicately and enjoyed his meals, but that did not mean that he could not endure hardship. He just wasn't used to it. When dining in the castle, one had to be clean and hygienic. After eating a dish, one had to wipe one's hands, drink a mouthful of wine, and maintain one's demeanor. At the same time, one would not let the taste of the previous dish mix with the next dish. Eating in the wild, one could only rely on one's own hands. Their hands were covered in grease, and it was not convenient to taste wine. In short, the taste of the food and the atmosphere of the meal would be greatly reduced. Gradually, the sun began to tilt. List, who was leaning against the tree trunk, almost dozed off. At this moment, he cast magic eyes and habitually scanned the surroundings, only to be taken aback. At some point in time, a behemoth outlined by red magic power had appeared at the edge of the swamp. It was in the shape of a bird, hiding in the bushes on the edge of the swamp. Dispelling the magic eyes, List, who was in high spirits, observed the fire attribute advanced World of Warcraft with his naked eye. Compared to the surrounding trees, the 10-meter-tall tree only reached the position of its neck, which meant that it stood at a height of 12 meters. It had grayish-brown feathers, and without looking at its head and neck, it looked like a large stork. However, looking at its thick neck and the huge head on its neck, it was far from a stork. In particular, the huge beak, which was flaxen and covered with brown spots, looked like a huge boot. This reminded List of the stupid big bird he had seen in an online video, the whale-headed stork. The whale-headed stork in the video, when feeding it small fish, actually dropped the small fish from its mouth several times. It was really stupid, no wonder it was said to be extinct. The advanced world of Warcraft in front of him was obviously not comparable to the whale-headed stork. Although it looked similar, its posture and momentum were not angry, and the rich red magic power also showed its strength. It stood in the bushes, motionless. Its sharp eyes stared at the purple sand crocodile in the swamp without blinking. Time passed, hour by hour. I might as well call you boot-billed giant stork. Your beak does look like a boot, and your body looks like a stork. Combined with your huge body size, this name perfectly sums up everything about you. List gave the bird a name out of boredom. When he finished, the sky was almost dark. In the few hours of the afternoon, the purple sand crocodile still had not seen its prey, and the boot-head stork was still standing in the bushes, patiently waiting. It had to be said. The patience of animals in hunting was indeed very strong. He couldn't help but think of himself driving a prey to the purple sand crocodile, and then baiting the boot-head stork to hunt the purple sand crocodile. Or, he could be more violent and directly rush over to fight with the boot-head stork. Who cares what advanced world of Warcraft it is, he could directly hunt it down. Forget it, let's wait a little longer. There is enough time, there is no need to take risks. Just as he thought of this, the situation suddenly changed. With a few grunts of boars, 2 fat Thundertusk wild boars ran over and led a few smaller Thundertusk wild boars toward the swamp area. The Thundertusk boars were low-level World of Warcraft of the Thunder element and could cast the spell Lightning Flash. Back in Thorn's Ridge, List worked together with the knight to hunt the Thundertusk boars. They had thick skin and thick flesh, making them difficult to deal with. As soon as the Thundertusk boars entered the swamp, they began rolling around in the mud, snorting and snorting happily, not knowing that they were approaching the Grim Reaper. Finally, a large Thundertusk boar rolled to a spot not far from the purple sand crocodile. In the next second, the purple sand crocodile pounced. It opened its huge mouth and bit the Thundertusk boar. It twisted its body and threw the Thundertusk boar into the swamp. Snort. Ong. The remaining Thundertusk boars fled in panic, but the purple sand crocodile did not care about them. The Thundertusk boar that weighed a ton was enough for it to enjoy a sumptuous meal. But just like the Thundertusk boar, the purple sand crocodile did not realize that it was not at the top of the food chain. Just when it was numbed by the Thundertusk boar's lightning flash and had no choice but to surface, the bootlace stork, which had been hiding in the bushes for a long time, quickly attacked. It spread its wings and strode forward with its long legs. Its huge beak, shaped like a boot, shot out like lightning and started pecking at the purple sand crocodile's head. A huge fireball was brewing in its beak. This was an advanced spell, Super Fireball. Every time it pecked the purple sand crocodile's head, the super fireball would hit, almost burning the purple sand crocodile's head. When it flapped its wings, it released another advanced spell, Flame Slash, which ruthlessly hacked at the purple sand crocodile's body. The purple sand crocodile hurriedly shook off the half-dead Thundertusk boar, opened its mouth and spat out its advanced spell, Water Wave Shield, to protect itself. Then, it released the advanced spell, Water Arrow Volley, to counterattack the bootlace stork. As an intermediate spell in World of Warcraft, it was much bigger than the bootlace stork. Its counterattack was also very fierce. But it was powerless to change its fate. The boot-beaked stork moved nimbly, continuously releasing all kinds of spells as it moved. Chain of Fireballs, Resistant Ring of Fire, Flame Slash, Super Large Fireballs, Flame Tornado, Dancing Fire Snake. It was like a moving magic cannon, mercilessly attacking the purple sand crocodile. In the end, it broke the Water Wave Shield and burned the purple sand crocodile. Its huge beak did not forget to peck at the purple sand crocodile's head. Its goal was clear, it wanted to smash open the purple sand crocodile's head. The purple sand crocodile's skin was too thick, and its magic barbecue was obviously not enough to cook it. Goo goo, the purple sand crocodile howled in pain, but no matter how it rolled, it could not stop the bootleg stork from making a hole in its head. Soon, its skull cracked, and even its brain matter splattered out. The howling gradually stopped, and the purple sand crocodile could only twitch its body. The bootleg stork flapped its wings and let out a strange cry of satisfaction, preparing to enjoy today's feast in the afterglow of the setting sun. Whoosh! List, who was standing on the tree and watching the amazing hunting scene, jumped down from the tree. He suddenly pulled out the sky cutter greatsword, channeled the dragon's aura in his body, stomped on the ground, and soared into the sky like a sharp arrow. Then, wrapped in a huge amount of dragon's aura, he cast a skill from the rising red sun, Sunset Fall. Together with the setting sun, he swooped down towards the bootleg stork. Now! Chapter 573. The Dragon Knight's appearance was naturally full of vigor. The powerful dragon warrior wrapped in a powerful fire attribute Sunset Fall, smashing into the bootleg stork of Advanced World of Warcraft. This move was very sudden, and before the bootleg stork could react, the powerful combat aura had already landed on its body. But at this moment, the bootleg stork instantly released a high-level spell, Resistance Ring of Fire. Boom! A huge flame rushed out from the bootleg stork, trying to repel List's attack. However, when this resistance touched the dragon warrior released by List, it quickly collapsed. Then, the sky splitter hit the bootleg stork's body, cutting off a large number of feathers. The bootleg stork's body was also smashed into the swamp, its big head screaming into the water. What a weak feeling. List felt like he was in a trance. He clearly attacked the Grand Duchy of Sapphire's Advanced World of Warcraft, but it was sent flying in one move. Ugh! Pulling out its bird head, the bootleg stork was furious. It opened its mouth and spat out a string of pearl-like fireballs. This was a high-level fire spell, Fireball Chain. List waved the sky splitter sword, the dragon warrior attached and gushed out, forming a forbidden zone. All the fireballs hit in front of him and quickly dissipated, unable to hit List at all. A spell that can't withstand a single blow. Is this the crushing power of dragon magic over ordinary magic? List was excited. The battle was far simpler than he expected. Ever since his Do Chi advanced to the Dragon Do Chi, every battle was completely one-sided. Earl Llewellyn was no longer his opponent. Advanced World of Warcraft bootleg stork was only a little stronger than low-level World of Warcraft. Blazing Sun Scorch. His body rushed forward, and the sky splitter sword stabbed forward, once again knocking down the bootleg stork who had not yet stabilized its footing. At the same time, the sky splitter sword dug a scorched hole in the bird's abdomen. Ugh! Feeling the pain, the bootleg stork stopped releasing magic and flapped its wings frantically. The wind stirred up by its huge wings was even stronger than the wind magic. Most importantly, the splashes of mud and water were scattered everywhere. List's draconic battle aura evaporated and formed a mist. This did not affect List in the slightest. He used the momentum to push away, stepping on the purple sand crocodile's carcass, and directly flew into the sky. Then, he turned around and used Sunset's Descent, turning into a red sun that came crashing down. The high-level fire attribute Dragon Do Chi turned into a sky full of fire, smashing onto the boot-billed giant stork. Rumble. Just like the purple sand crocodile, the bootleg stork had no power to fight back. Its speed, attack power, and magic power were all no match for List. Its fate was sealed. 10 minutes later, the bootleg stork breathed its last. List stood on its carcass and took a few deep breaths. Although it was a one-sided slaughter, the high-level World of Warcraft was still durable. 10 minutes of tormenting it back and forth had used up half of his combat aura reserves. This kind of strength was basically equivalent to a perfect level Sky Knight. The purple sand crocodile used up a wave of magic power, plus I didn't let it fly. As a bird-type World of Warcraft, its strength was reduced by half. But even if it fought with all its strength, it was still no match for me. The Draconic Battle Aura's ability to crush normal magic power is too strong. Recalling the details of the battle, Roland concluded his shortcomings. At this moment, the sky was completely dark. List looked at the bootlace stork, the purple sand crocodile, and the thundertusk boar and was a little worried. What do I do with these carcasses? The bootlace stork can sneak them away, but the purple sand crocodile is a product of the Count's territory, so it belongs to the Count's private property. Forget it, I'll just take them all away. I'll go back and make up for the Count's loss of the purple sand crocodile. List was not willing to give up on the meat of a high-level World of Warcraft, but if he gave the purple sand crocodile to the Count, it would obviously expose the bootlace stork's existence. There was no way to hide the wound, and only a high-level World of Warcraft could kill an intermediate-level World of Warcraft. Let's find an excuse. I'll say that Seagull Island was invaded by a high-level World of Warcraft and I killed it. Later, the Count will understand that the purple sand crocodile was killed by a high-level World of Warcraft. I'll send some of the bootlace stork's meat to the Count, and this matter should be over. After all, if I didn't do anything, the Count wouldn't have been able to deal with the bootlace stork. He should be thanking me. Well, I'm his son, so he should suffer a little. His thoughts ended. He looked at the corpse of the bootlace stork and sighed faintly. It's a pity that I was too ruthless at the time. If I could have endured it, tamed it, and used it as a high-level World of Warcraft as a mount, it would definitely be cool. But it doesn't matter, I now have the intermediate dragon beast Loki, and in the future, there will be even more dragons. The bootlace stork was an adult high-level World of Warcraft, and it was not easy to tame. It was very dangerous to keep it in the territory. The most important thing was that List did not lack mounts, and they were all dragon mounts. It was rare to encounter a high-level World of Warcraft, so it was better to kill it and eat its meat. The meat of a high-level World of Warcraft was definitely nutritious. The gem space was limited, and it could not contain such a large World of Warcraft. Therefore, he could only leave the 3 corpses here, return to the seaside, take out the conch horn, and blow it rhythmically. Chirp. After a while, the rainbow whale Lolth responded from the sea. She did not leave, and had been waiting for List. Turning over and mounting, List directly issued an order, Lolth, let's go. A few hours later, he returned to Flower Town. Overnight, he organized the crew, started 2 cargo ships, and sailed to the beach at the southwest end of Coral Island. At dawn, the ship finally arrived at the beach. The water was too shallow to dock, so he could only put down the sampan and send serfs to drag the 3 corpses to the surface. The World of Warcraft corpses decayed slowly, but it attracted several windblade wolves to eat the corpses. These windblade wolves soon became food for the territory. With List personally supervising the hauling of the corpses, how could there be any World of Warcraft and take away the benefits? My lord, the 3 World of Warcraft corpses and the Windblade Wolf corpses have been transported to the ship. Let's go. List said to Isaiah, who was in charge of the command. When you go back, remember to keep your mouth shut. I don't want what happened tonight to be leaked. My lord, please rest assured that the serfs organized before departure are honest new serfs. Not only do they speak little, they don't even know a few words of Serpentine. And we will sail directly to Black Horse Island. These serfs will support the construction of Black Horse Island, and the crew of the 2 ships will be rearranged on Black Horse Island. That's good. Although it was nothing to expose the secret, it was not a glorious thing after all, and List did not want to cause misunderstandings. The ship sailed. The high-level World of Warcraft meat was about to be eaten. The smoke mission has been completed. Mission completed, reward a variety of abandoned worm grass. The abandoned worm grass that originally belonged to him was used as a mission reward, and List was very unhappy. He preferred the unknown rewards from the smoke mission, rather than taking out the benefits that were already clear as a reward. It felt like putting the candy in his left pocket into his right pocket. But he did not worry about anything, and the new mission made him frown. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.